Well, here he is again, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax. For Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, everybody.
And first of all, Dizzy Dean, how about that All-Star game? Did it catch you with your prognostications out on a limb?
No, it didn't catch me out on a limb, Frank. I can say without hesitation that I'm proud of the way the game came out.
Now, what do you mean, proud, Diz? As I remember it, you talked about long ball hitters and thought the National League had a good chance.
I'm proud, Frank, because a pitcher won that game. You know, people don't appreciate that a lot of pitchers are very fine hitters. But Vic Rash had done all the pitching, made all the pitchers proud the way he stepped up there and won the 1948 ball game with a base hit. A single with the bases filled. I was mighty glad to see Rash up there in that pinch. And I laughed when some of the experts in the press box around me was saying, "That Bucky Harris. Why don't he send DiMaggio or somebody in there to hit for Rashi?" Frank, us pitchers is pretty good hitters. Yes, sir, and a pitcher won this one with a base hit. And you don't have to look far for the hero of this game. It wasn't no long ball hitter. It was just another good hitting pitcher, Vic Rashi.
Well, Diz, there was a lot of talk before and after that game about discontinuing the annual midsummer baseball show because some of the players didn't seem to be displaying too much interest in it. How do you feel about that?
Frank, there was a full house out there in the ballpark. The fans seemed to like it. It put $93,000 in the players' pension fund. I can't see nothing wrong with the All-Star game. Keep on playing, that's all I can say. I did hear some weeping afterwards about not being such a whale of a ball game, but I noticed the American League crowd wasn't doing no moaning.
No moaning with a record like that. Well, Diz, it's mailbag time now. The letters have been just pouring in. Ben Todd of Batchtown, Illinois, wants to know what you think of the trouble the pitchers have been having this year. And as an old pitcher of parts, Dizzy, have you the answer to Mr. Todd's question?
I sure think I got that answer, Frank. I've been noticing, too, that ball games is running long and the pitchers have been wearing a regular path from the mound to the dugout and from the bullpen to that hill, and maybe vice versa. And every time you look up, there's a count of 3-2 on every hitter.
And what, Professor Dean, is the answer?
I think them home run crazy hitters has got the pitchers scared to death, Frank. It looks like they're scared to let loose of the ball. They stand out there and shake off the catchers, and it looks like they'd rather be tooken up for being just a little bit wild, after all, walking 5 or 10 men, than to have somebody get a couple of base hits.
Well, have you a suggestion, Professor, how we might calm down those pitchers, sort of ease their minds?
Yes, Frank, if the pitchers will quit trying to cut those corners too fine and just powder that ball in there, I think the game will get shorter and you won't need so many pitchers every day. I believe the pitchers have gone crazy about pitching to spots. A good pitcher don't have to worry too much about spots. Let him rear back and fire that fastball in there and break off a few jug-handled curves once in a while, and he'll find those hitters won't get so many doggone home runs. That's what me and Paul used to do. Just fog 'em in and let the hitters take care of themselves, brother. And that goes for all the good pitchers. Dazzy Vance never worried about anything except getting the ball in the strike zone. Carl Hubble was the same way. There was a great pitcher. You didn't see him ever walk everybody in the ballpark.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Paul back there, Diz, because another letter writer, Frank Crosby of Detroit, Michigan, wants to know if you were just kidding when you said recently that you came up the hard way.
Frank, I'll say me and Paul come up the hard way. When we were kids, we never knew what it was to own a baseball glove. We used yarn from our dad's socks to make a baseball, and we cut a limb off of a hickory tree to make a baseball bat. And when we was picking cotton for 50 cents a day, we never had no time to think about higher education, 5th grade, that is. Boy, we were sure green. You should have seen those cows chasing us when we caught the train. I know we've caught on pretty good since then, but we didn't know much about the world outside of Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma. I remember one time in New York when we was with the Cardinals. Somebody got kicking about the income taxes we had to pay, and Paul, that's my kid brother, he said, fellas, we all ought to do something about them taxes. They're too high. And if all the people in this here country would get together and vote the way, I'll bet we'd have things change. Paul said, there must be 1 million people in this country. Of course, Frank, I thought I was a lot smarter than Paul because I spoke right up and said, don't be silly, Paul. You know doggone well there's more than 1 million in this great big country. By golly, there must be 9 or 10 million.
Well, Diz, you learned fast.
Yep, Frank, I'm like Sam Nairn. He learned fast.
Oh, another story, huh?
Yes, this was a short one, Frank. You know, Sam Nairn was a young catcher with the Cardinals. Sam thought he was a third baseman, but Branch Rickey told him he was too fat. Third base didn't want him, and he'd better be a catcher. So Sam says, all right, Mr. Rickey, whatever you say. You get to saying that easy when you around Uncle Branch, too. Yes, sir, Mr. Rickey. Anyhow, Sam reported at training camp, and Frankie Frisch was manager. Sam asked Frank if there was any particular orders for him the first day. And Frank says, no, Sam, no particular orders. Here's what I want you to do. You pick out some veteran on the club and do whatever he does. If he runs, you run. If he gets in the pepper game, you get in one. Well, about an hour later, Frank is leaning on the batting cage watching the Cardinals hit. And all of a sudden, ducking a foul, he sees Sam Nairn leaning on the batting cage, too. Hey, Sam, Frankie says, what are you doing here? I thought I told you to pick out some veteran on the club and do whatever he was doing. That's what I'd done, Mr. Frisch, Nairn tells Frankie. Who did you pick? Frankie wanted to know. And Sam Nairn says, I picked you, Mr. Frisch, and I've been doing whatever I've seen you done ever since.
Well, Diz, you know there's nothing like picking the best. And, for example, a lot of men are picking Johnson's Carnu when they're faced with the job of cleaning that family car.
That's natural. We're making Carnu famous from Washington, D.C. to every whistle stop.
Of course we are, Diz. After all, practically everybody wants something that'll make the tough job of cleaning a car a lot easier. Now, water alone won't do the job. You know that, men. In the past, if you wanted to tool along in a car that sparkled from bumper to bumper, you had to do two things. You had to clean away that stubborn road film that water won't touch, and you had to polish the car besides. But now, Johnson's Carnu does both jobs in one easy application. Cleans your car and polishes it, too. Just rub it on, wipe it off. Carnu contains special cleaning ingredients that penetrate and carry away the film on your car. Film built up of bugs and tree sap and soil and tar. And that's because Carnu is fortified with wax. It polishes your car, too, gives it a sleek, bright luster. For a real Sunday shine, get some Carnu today. That's Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu, C-A-R-N-U. You'll save yourself work, and you'll do your car proud. And now it's time for Dizzy Dean, the coach. And Diz, what advice have you today for ambitious young ball players who'd like to reach the big leagues?
Frank, this is some general advice, and it's for the older boys. I mean those around 16, 17, or 18 years of age, who are about ready to try their luck in pro baseball. And first, be sure you're in the best possible playing condition before you go to a tryout school. Get your arms and legs in shape. Get some batting practice. If you possibly can, try to go to a baseball school in midsummer or in the fall. After you had 2 or 3 months of playing baseball, then you'll be able to show your best ability. Second, find out what you can do best. I mean, if you can hound those grounders, try for the infield. If you're extra fast going after them flies, try for the outfield. And, brother, if you can hit a ball a long way and often, don't worry. They'll find a place for you. Third, give extra time to practicing on anything that is your weakness. If you're a fine fielder and weak hitter, carry a bat around with you and bat every chance you get. If you're an outfielder who has trouble with ground balls, have somebody to hit grounders to you till you're blue in the face. And fourth, and here's some advice for city governments all over the country. Give those kids baseball fields to play on, folks. Don't have no fancy child delinquency programs. Just give the kids baseball limits and the boys will do all right. Nobody ever got into no trouble on a baseball field, except maybe an argument with umpires. And Leo DeRocha and Frankie Frisch will tell you that ain't no serious trouble. If you're worrying about the kids, just look around your town. See if the boys got a place to play baseball. And buy them a few baseballs and bats and gloves. Brother, they'll pay dividends more than all the fancy speech-making you can do.
Well, I know now, Dizzy, why you said you wanted the fathers and brothers to listen to your advice. And now it's about time for you to spin one of your favorite yarns. What is it today, Diz?
That sign business reminds me of one I always got a laugh out of, Frank. It's about Pepper Martin, the greatest one-man show that ever hit a baseball. He was third baseman and outfielder with the old Gas House gang, and boy, was he a character. This one's about Pepper and signs. You know, in baseball, you have signs for everything. The pitch out, the steal, the hit and run, the sacrifice, and the manager usually relays it to a coach who flashes the sign from the coach's box at first to third. Well, one day we're playing the Giants at the Polo Grounds, and we've got a man on third with 2 out and Pepper Martin at bat, and the Giants leading 2-1 in the ninth. The count works to 2 strikes and 2 balls, and of course, under them circumstances, there's only one thing to do: protect that plate and try for a base hit. But we all like to fell off the bench when Pepper puts down a bunt. Pepper could run like a scared rabbit, but the giant third baseman races in and throws out Pepper by a whisker. That ends the ball game, and when we gets to the clubhouse, Gabby Street, the manager is fit to be tied. He says, "Pepper, I never thought you'd do a thing like that." And Pepper says, "Gracious, Gabby, I was surprised, too, when I got the sign." "Who give you that bunt sign?" says Street. And Pepper says, "Buzzy Wares give it to me." And Gabby says, "Buzzy, did you give the bunt sign?" And Buzzy says, "Yes, you gave it to me, Gabby, and I gave it to Pepper." And Gabby says, "Buzzy, I don't believe you even know the bunt sign." And Buzzy says, "Yes, I do, like this." And Buzzy rubs his hand across his face, and then Gabby did explode. He says, "Buzzy, you pulled a boner. Can't you tell the difference between when a man's giving a bunt sign and when he's just chasing a fly off his nose?"
Well, Diz, these managers really do have their troubles, don't they? And speaking of managers, how about that managerial shake-up in the East yesterday?
Well, Frank, that's something I'm glad to talk about, and it was really a shock to me, and I'm sure it's a shock to a lot of people in baseball all over the country. Nobody even dreamed that Leo DeRosa would be let out as a Brooklyn Dodger and go to the New York Giants. And little Mel Ott, who was manager of the New York Giants, went to the office. Well, I want to say something about those 2 boys. I played against them, and I played with them. They're 2 great fellas. And just like baseball men all over the country say, when you're going pretty good, why, the manager's always in there. But if you happen to hit a slump and you have a little bad luck, why, they say, the first thing they say, let's fire the manager. So that's exactly why they made that change, and we can see which is going to do the best, because Bert Schotten managed the ball club in Brooklyn last year. He's back there now as manager. The New York Giants, the Brooklyn Dodgers, have changed managers, and they're practically tied for 4th place. About a half a game separating one another, and by the time the season's over, we'll see which one of the clubs prospers by the change of those managers.
Well, it was certainly, as you say, Diz, a great shock to the baseball world to see all this take place, and all in one day. These 2 managers, New York and Brooklyn, and then that change in the Philadelphia Phillies, too.
Yes, Ben Chapman's let out, and I want to say that there's another great friend of mine, a great ball player, and I thought he was doing all right as a manager. But as I said a minute ago, you know, when you get to going bad, why, the manager's the first fellow they fire. And the Phillies got off to a great start under Ben Chapman, and they was right up there 1.5 and 2 games out of the first place for the first 40 or 50 ball games. Then they went into a little slump, and then they let Chapman out yesterday. And after all, he had a young ball club, and he's going to have a good ball club one of these days, but I think they're a year or 2 away.
Well, have you any idea what he's going to do now, Diz?
Well, Frankie's got a bowling alley, and I think he'll go down there and run his bowling alley.
He lives down there in Birmingham, Alabama, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right. He lives in Birmingham. And speaking of Birmingham, you know, Ben was just let out yesterday. He's probably got down there just in time this morning for that rebel convention they're having down in Alabama.
Well, folks, we certainly hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean, brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Rub it on, and Carnu zips away road film that water won't touch. Wipe it off, and Carnu polishes your car. Gives the whole body a new car luster. Carnu your car today, and then tomorrow you'll breeze down the highway in a car with a real Sunday shine. Remember, rub it on and wipe it off is all you do with Carnu.
And this is old Dizzy, hoping all you folks are on the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eshen saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. The Dizzy Dean Show came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Here he is again, folks, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Hi, everybody. Front and center, you outfielders. I'm going to have some advice for you fly chasers today. So relax and get ready to do some remembering, what I tell you.
Yes, and that's just one of the things Dizzy Dean will tell you today and every Saturday at this time. This is Frank Eschen, who knows that Dizzy Dean knows what he's talking about. Dizzy will answer letters from the mailbag, he'll spin a few baseball yarns, he'll do some prognosticating, and he'll tell you of the big league picture as he sees it. And first off today, we have the mailbag, Diz.
What did the postman bring this time, Frank?
Well, it was a very heavy make of Seattle. Mr. McCormick was interested in your comment on Bob Lemon of the Cleveland Indians in a recent broadcast. He wants to know if you think many ball players start out in the wrong position and how it happens that occasionally some manager does see unsuspected talent and put a player on the right path. To get right down to the point, Diz, have there been many cases like that of Bob Lemon?
Frank, I guess Mr. McCormick's right. I reckon there's been lots of ball players who never made it in the big leagues because they picked the wrong job in the first place. But I can think of several who got straightened out. Take Bucky Walters, for instance. He come up as an infielder, but he wasn't much of a hitter. And I guess he'd have drifted out of the big leagues without ever getting into the big dough if that great little catcher, Jimmy Wilson, hadn't seen that Bucky could become a great pitcher.
And what was it, Diz, that first attracted Jimmy's attention to Bucky Walters' potentialities as a pitcher?
What was that word, Frank? Potentialities?
Potentialities, Diz. You know, the qualifications that led Wilson to believe that Walters, the mediocre infielder, might become a pitcher.
Well, why didn't you say that in the first place? It was this way. Walter was playing the infield, and Jimmy was using him at third base. Jimmy noticed that the first baseman was having trouble with Bucky's throws. And when he asked the first baseman, he told Jimmy that Bucky's throws was taking off.
Doing what? Taking off?
Yes, Frank, taking off. You know, one throw would rise, another would curve. That's what they call taking off, Frank. The trade calls it throwing a live ball.
Well, why didn't you say so in the first place, Diz? But go ahead, go on.
Well, the rest of the story was just a matter of time, Frank. I mean, until Walters got control. And when he got it, boy, he was hard to beat. All he had to do when he pitched against the Cardinals was to walk out there on the mound. Usually the Cards was beat right then.
Well, Diz, did Walters have trouble with his control?
I'll say he did. He was pitching an exhibition game against us in Florida, his first spring as a pitcher. And I'll never forget it. He walked two men, hit one, and then cleared the bases with two wild pitches. Boy, the batters wasn't digging in at that there plate when Bucky was pitching. When I went to bat, he like to took off the peak of my cap with the first one. Then, by some chance, he got two strikes on me. X was come out outside. But I had enough of hitting against Walters for that time, and when the umpire said, ball two, I said, ball two, nothing. That ball was right in there, and I am out.
Glad to get out, huh?
Yes, sir.
But, Diz, when Walters got that valuable thing control, he really had it, didn't he?
Yes, Frank, and after you get control, unless you can just overpower the hitters, you got to learn to throw that ball where you want. You got to mix up your pitches, wasting one now and then. Like one game Walters pitched against us after he was beginning to find himself. We decided in the clubhouse that Walters would be trying to get that first ball in there. So we went out to swing at the first pitch. And we got off to a good start. Pepper Martin hits the first pitch for a single. Jack Rothrock hits the next pitch for an infield hit. And Frankie Frisch doubles on the next one. And then Joe Medwick hits the fourth pitch right out of the bark. 4 pitches, and we got 4 runs. Jimmy Wilson, manager of the Phillies, run out and says to the young catcher, Bill Atwood, what's the matter? Ain't Bucky got his stuff? And the young catcher cracks back at Wilson. How the world should I know, Jimmy? I ain't caught a ball yet.
Well, Diz, infielders seem to make good pitchers. Now, there was Bob Lemon you told us about a couple of weeks ago, and Bucky Walters today. Does it ever work the other way?
Yes, Frank, occasionally a pitcher throws away the toe plate and plays every day. You heard of a fellow named Babe Ruth.
Ah, the best example yet, Diz.
Then there was Chick Hapey, the old Cardinal. Chick was taking part in batting practice at Sportsman's Park in St. Louis with a lot of other rookies. He kept slamming the ball against the fences. Branch Rickey was in the stands, and he says to one of the scouts, who is that boy just hit that ball? And the scout says, that's Chick Hapey, a pitcher. And Rickey says, you mean he was a pitcher? Tell him he's an outfielder now. And Chick become one of the best outfielders because he could hit that ball in a mile.
Well, Diz, I'd like to tell the men now how they can make a hit with their families. On Sunday, I guess all of us like to drive down the street in a clean, sparkling car. But when it comes to cleaning it, well, there's always a temptation to stall and putter around the house and do anything rather than face that tough job.
Well, if anybody ain't using Carnu, I'll say you ain't really pitching.
I'm doing my best, Diz. Doing my best to let everybody know that Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu solves the auto-cleaning problem. No doubt about it, men. Carnu makes that job much easier because it cleans and polishes in one application. First, the special cleaning ingredients in Johnson's Carnu soften up and carry away that stubborn road film that collects on your car. Water can't touch that film, but Carnu gets it quick. And second, Carnu polishes your car, so it shines from radiator to tail light. That's because Carnu is wax fortified. All you do is apply Johnson's Carnu, let it dry to a white powder, and then wipe it off. Rub it on, wipe it off. That's all there is to it. So as soon as this program's over, why not drop in on your dealer or the nearest filling station and get some Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. Carnu works so quickly you can easily do the job before sundown. And how will your car look? Say, that paint job will sparkle like new. The chrome trim will glisten and gleam. Your whole car will have that Sunday shine. Now it's time for Dizzy Dean, the coach. You ready to tell those outfielders about chasing flies, Diz?
All set, Frank. And right off, I'll set it up in 4 main points. First, learn to play the hitters. Second, be ready to do the right thing when the ball is hit your way. Third, have in mind exactly what the situation is. And fourth, learn to play with sunglasses before you break into a league where you may have to play the sun field. And now I'll take up them points. First again, most hitters have a habit of hitting to a certain field. Learn about that every time you get a new hitter comes to bat. Move where you think he's most likely to hit the ball. And second, on each hitter, make up your mind where you'll throw the ball if you catch a fly or field a base hit. Don't put off your thinking till the ball is in your hand. If you do that kind of thinking, after you get the ball, you're weakening your ball club. And third, keep in mind the score and how many are on base and what bases they're on. If your team has a good lead, you may let a run score to keep a man from going to third. If you're only 1 run ahead, you'll play in close and make a throw to the plate to cut off that tying run if it's all possible. I can't sum that up better than to say, keep the situation in mind at all times. And about number 4, and them sunglasses, you'll be glad you take that advice. I've seen many an outfielder come up from the minors without even having worn sunglasses. It's true they play most of their games in the minors at night. But learn to wear sunglasses just the same. Get yourself a pair of sunglasses, you young outfielders, and learn to use them. They may keep you from making an extra trip for those bush leagues.
That's very fine advice, Diz, but I think you've been unusually serious today. How about one of those inimitable baseball stories? Dizzy Dean, the storyteller, huh?
Okay, Frank. How about an umpire story?
That's fine. Go right ahead.
Well, this is about me and a veteran umpire named Cy Fairman. He was in a close game with the Giants, and I was on first base when Frankie Frisch hit a clean single to right. I was a pretty good base runner, Frank, if I do say so myself. Now, I really took off. I rounded second, tore for third, and me and the cloud of dust and the ball all arrived at third at the same time. I thought I'd made it, but umpire Fairman called me out. But before I could get up and squawk about the decision, Fairman started talking and brushing me off. He brushed the dust off my shoulders, and he said, Diz, that was a great piece of base running. Frisch couldn't have run no faster. And that slide, Dizzy Ty Cobb couldn't have done no better. But Dizzy, Ott made a great throw on the play, and you're out. I didn't have the heart to say no more to Fairman, but on the way to the dugout, I passed Bill Clem, who was working at the plate, and I said, Bill, did you see that play? And Bill said, yes, Jerome, I seen it. Well, I started telling Bill that I was safe and that Jackson hasn't tagged me. And I beat the throw when Bill broke in and said, Jerome, remember me? I'm Bill Clem, behind the plate. If you want to get on somebody about that play at third, talk to Mr. Furman. And I said, no, sir, Bill. I couldn't say nothing to Cy. You know, he was so nice to me that if I'd had a quarter in my pocket, I'd have tipped him.
Always the kind-hearted, generous Dizzy Dean. Right now, though, it's Dizzy Dean, the reporter. And what has your rapt attention right now, Diz? What do you see in that crystal ball?
You mean you want me to do some prognosticating, Frank?
If you care to, Diz. But first of all, let's take a look at that big league picture.
Well, I'd say that right now, Frank, Lou Boudreau and Connie Mack is on the spot. What I mean is that two hot clubs is barking at the heels of the Cleveland Indians and the Athletics. The Red Sox are the hottest club, and the way things is right now, it looks like it might be an all-Boston series next October. But the Yankees are staying up close enough. I wouldn't be surprised if the situation is turned around in another couple of weeks. I expect the Red Sox and Yankees to be fighting it out soon for the first spot in the American League.
Diz, what do you think has been responsible for the upsurge of the Red Sox?
It ain't any one thing, Frank. It takes power, defense, and pitching to keep a club going at top speed. It looks like a case of everything starting to click for the Red Sox. And here's a funny thing about it, Frank. Everybody figured Ted Williams would have to carry that ball club. But Ted's been out for about 15 games, and the Red Sox kept on winning. 9 straights up to today. And Stan Spence hasn't been doing too much hitting. But even with Williams out and Spence in a slump, Boston's been moving right along. You know, Frank, most of the experts figured the Yankees would win this year. They figured New York would have better pitching. But right now, the Yankee pitcher is not so hot, while Boston's pitching has been getting better. Jack Kramer has been a big help. Vern Stevens has been pounding that ball. Ellis Kinder won another one the other day. Frank, that big winter deal with the Browns is paying off at last.
And, Diz, it seems to me, too, that Joe McCarthy rates a hand for getting that club going.
You said it, Frank. It would have been easy for Joe to get panicky, the way the Red Sox started. But he just kept quiet. He knew he had the power. He knew he had a good ball club. He stayed with the boys, and now they're coming through.
But you think the Yankees will fight it out for first place. You expect the Yankee pitching to improve, Diz?
It could, Frank. Bucky Harris has pitching who might start clicking any day. Rashi, Reynolds, and Lopat could put together a winning streak if Frank Shea could find himself.
And in the National League?
That won't get exciting, Frank, till somebody cuts down that wide space between the Boston Braves and second place. Billy Southworth's got himself a pretty fat cushion right now, Frank. He looks like a winner to me.
Well, so much for the Swami reporter. But now, Diz, would you care to say something about that Cleveland-Washington row the other night? You know, the one that resulted in the sort of a man-bite-dog news that an umpire had been suspended?
Well, go ahead, Frank. Put me on the spot. Don't you know there ain't never been no open season on umpires? Seriously, though, Frank, here's an idea. Them umpires take a lot through a season. Pitcher's beef if a close one is called a ball. The batter beefs if it's called a strike. I imagine if even old Dears would get fed up on that if I were an umpire. But let's suggest one big free day for the umpires. On that day, let the umpires beef at the ball players. Let them ball them out if they strike out or if they get caught off a base. Let the umpires throw dust and kick masks and rosin bags. Frank, I believe the umpires got a day of freedom coming to them.
Diz, I certainly second that motion. And if the umpires learn about this, they'll be coming right back to you for more help. And, folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Rub it on, Carnu cleans your car, gets the road film that water won't touch. Wipe it off, and Carnu polishes your car, makes it shine like new. So zip over your car with Johnson's Carnu and make it shine like a new dollar. Remember to give your car that Sunday shine. Rub it on, wipe it off, is all you do with Carnu.
This is Old Diz. Hope all you folks are in the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
WMAQ, NBC in Chicago.
Here he is again, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Frank, I got another Charlie Grimm story today, and we might as well get it off our chest right now.
All right, Diz. I was going to tell the folks we appreciated the letters to the Dizzy Dean mailbag. Now, that takes care of that, so on with the Charlie Grimm yarn.
It's a brand new one, Frank. The Cubs had played some good ball, but they had their troubles, too. And this story is about a misfortune time the club had this season. The Cubs, which Charlie Grimm manages, had lost 8 straight games, and then one day they get off to a good start and get 3 men on base with nobody out. That makes Grimm feel pretty good. With them bases filled, the next batter hits a short fly to left field, and Charlie is afraid the ball is going to be caught. So he signals the base runners to hold their places and wait to see what happens to that fly ball. Well, the man on third sees the hold-up sign and stands close to third base. But the man on first and second think that's a base hit, sure, and they take off. And when Grimm looks over after seeing the left fielder take the short fly on a one bounce, there's 3 Cubs all on third base. Charlie thought he was in Brooklyn at first, but he remembers it ain't Brooklyn. So he walks over to the bag and says to the 3 base runners, who you can imagine is a little bit rattled by all that congestion, fellows, let's have a little meeting now that we're all together and here and so convenient. And I think it's mighty good idea for about 2 of you birds to take off in the general direction of second base. Yes, let's do that and see what steps the opposition takes.
Well, I can well imagine, Diz, what steps the opposition took. That heads-down base running can cause a lot of confusion, can't it?
Yes, and it happens anywhere. Those Brooklyn Dodgers never did have no copyright on dizzy base running. I've seen the smartest club in the league get in a jam. Frank, can you imagine a situation like this? Runners on first and second, and Cardinal runners, mind you, nobody out. The batter hits a clean double to right field. Nobody scores, and when the dust clears up and all the throwing is over, there's 2 outs, and the man who hit the double is on first base.
No, I can't imagine that, Dizzy, but I know you're going to tell us about it, so proceed.
We was playing the Giants at the Polo Grounds, Frank. A tall pitcher named Henry Pipping was on second base, and Terry Moore, a great base runner, was on first. Nobody out, remember? Well, a young rookie named Art Garbaldi, who played third base for the Cards for a short spell that season, was the batter. And he hits that clean double to right that I was telling you about. Pippin takes off for third base and figures he'll score easily, and he could. But Mike Gonzalez on the third base coaching sees Mel Ott make a quick stop and throw that looks like it could be relayed to the plate in time to prevent Moore from scoring from first. So Gonzalez tries to give Pipping and Moore instructions at the same time. So he gives a go sign with his left hand, meaning for Pipping to score. And he flashes the stop sign with his right hand, meaning for Moore to pull up at third. At the same time, Mike tries to tell everybody what he means. He yells, "You go, he stop. You go, he stop. You go, he stop," at the top of his voice. And believe me, that Gonzalez had a pretty good voice. Well, Pippin looks up rounding third, and all he sees is that big right hand of Mike's flashing the stop sign. Pippin figures maybe Mel Ott out there done some kind of a miracle with that hit. But Pippin's a good soldier. He tried to stop, lost his footing, and fell flat. By that time, Ott's throw has been taken by Bartell, who fires the ball to Gus Mancuso, and Pippin is a dead duck. But before Mancuso can catch Pippin, Terry Moore, who had rounded second and reached third, decides maybe he'd better leave third open in case Pippin can get back there. So Terry takes off for second base. But Mancuso makes a quick tag of Pippin by that time and fires the ball to second base, and Moore is caught in a run-up and tagged out. And poor Garbaldi, just up from the Coast League, has reached second base easy on his double. But seeing Moore coming back, he races back to first base.
Well, the thing that amazes me, Dizzy, is that Frankie Frisch lived through all that.
You should have been there in the dugout, Frank. We lost a fine chance to get back in the ball game by that series of bad breaks. But that dugout was better than the show. Gonzalez comes in after the inning and he says, "Frank, I tell Pippin he run, and I told Terry he go. But those crazy fellows, they can understand plain English."
Well, Diz, could you tell us what Frisch said under those trying circumstances?
Yes, he was in good form. He grabbed 4 towels and spread them out on the floor of the dugout, and he said, "Men, here is a baseball diamond. There is home plate, and there is first base and second base and third base. Now try to remember where all these bases are." Just then, Terry Moore entered the dugout, and Frisch said, "Mr. Moore, these are the bases on the diamond. First, second, and third." But Terry couldn't stand any more. He kicked those towels one after another right out of the dugout, and the umpires must have wondered who was throwing in all those white flags.
Well, thanks, Diz, for an enlightening story. I've often wondered just what went on in that dugout at a tense moment like that. And if you'll pardon me for invading your department very briefly, Mel Ott told me a good base-running story. It seems that Mel stopped at third on a double by Lindstrom one day, and Freddie, not paying too much attention, thought that Ott had scored. Well, as the pitcher took a full wind-up, the otherwise alert Lindstrom quickly broke for third and made a clean steal of the bag. The only trouble, of course, was that as he slid in, he saw his buddy Ott on the same base. "Where in the world are you going?" Ott asked. And Lindstrom quick cracked, "Back to second, Mel, if I can make it."
And now, Frank, I can see it's mailbag time. Got any good ones today?
We sure have, Diz. Here's one from Ned Cram of Portland, Maine, who was interested in your talk about pitchers who were scared of home runs and about games that dragged out so long. Mr. Cram asks if you don't think games could be shortened quite a bit if pitchers could get their signs from the catcher more quickly. And he wonders if all that delay as the signs are being flashed, shaken off, or approved is necessary. How about it, Diz?
I've noticed just what Mr. Cram said, Frank. It does seem to take some pitchers and catchers powerful long to get their signs straightened out. But I believe that all goes back to what we was talking about a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there's a shortage of catchers, and the pitchers are mighty leery about throwing that ball. Of course, Frank, there's a good reason for those signs between the catcher and pitcher. The catcher's got to know whether it's a curve or a fastball. If he don't know, he can be caught off guard mighty easy. Sometimes you see a catcher fool worse than the hitter on a pitch, and usually you see the catcher go out and talk to the pitcher after that. Probably got their signals crossed.
And that's bad in any business.
You said it, Frank. Of course, if you got the stuff, you don't have to worry too much about those signs. One day in Boston, the Cardinals were playing the Braves, and after one of them fancy clubhouse meetings that all managers like to hold, I said to Bill Delancey, my catcher, "Bill, let's see how we can get by today without no signs and without pitching no curves. I'll just fog that fast one in there, mixing a change-up once in a while. That's a half-speed ball, Frank. And we'll see how we get along." Well, them Braves didn't know what was going on. There wasn't a sign all day, and we played that game in about an hour and a half. And, Frank, we shut 'em out without even throwing a curveball.
But only a dean could do that, Dizzy. And only Carnew can do the job I'm going to tell you about now.
Step right up to the plate, Frank, and smack it out.
Well, there's just no percentage in driving a car that looks as dull as a mud turtle. You don't like it, and your family doesn't like it. Everybody prefers a car that sparkles like new. Of course, cleaning used to be a tough job, I'll admit. But with Johnson's wax-fortified Carnew, you can make your car shine from front grille to back bumper by just rubbing it on and wiping it off. You see, Carnew cleans as it polishes your car. Cleans it with 6 special ingredients that slice through road film like a searchlight through darkness. It zips away that sticky, stubborn film that water won't touch. And Johnson's Carnew polishes your car, gives it a brilliant luster, because Carnew is wax-fortified. And it's so easy. Rub some Carnew on your car, let it dry to a white powder, and then wipe it off. That's all there is to it. Why not pick up some Johnson's wax-fortified Carnew from your nearest dealer? Get some after the show today and try it before supper. Just rub it on, wipe it off, and tomorrow roll down the highway in a car with an eye-catching Sunday shine. Now it's time for Dizzy Dean the coach. What have you in the way of sage counsel for young Americans who want to play big league baseball, Coach Dean?
It's short today, Frank. Just one little idea, but I believe it will help the boys. You know, I can't pass a kid's ball game on a corner lot without wanting to stop and watch them play. And the last game I watched, I noticed the kids were having a lot of trouble on infield flies because 2 or 3 of them would try to catch the same fly. Now, young ball players should start right away trying to play the game right. I've poked fun at clubhouse meetings, but you can sure learn plenty in them meetings. Get your club together before a game or some inning before you're going to play. Do a little organizing. Have an understanding that when a pop fly is hit into the air, the infielders will take orders from the pitcher. He's in a good position to see who can make the catch the more easiest, and see that the pitcher understands he's to holler instructions. It's just those little things, organization. That's all it amounts to. That makes the difference between greenhorn baseball and the kind that should be played. Just try that little tip. The man making the catch can't see nothing but the ball. He don't know what the base runners is doing, but if the pitcher hollers, Joe, you take it, and then second base, Joe, second base, you may get yourself a double play. That's the way to do it in the big leagues. Boys, and that's where you want to be, playing as soon as you can. You don't want to be semi-pro bush leaguers. Organized, fellas. Just organized.
That sort of cooperation would be in order for all of us, Diz. And now, will you cooperate with one more story before we catch up with the hot news department?
Just a short one, Frank. It's about my old friend Beans Reardon, one of the finest umpires ever to wear an old Civil War mask, and one of them blowed-up chest protectors. I like Beans. I like to talk, and Beanie will oblige you at any time. He's one of the talkingest umpires I ever seen. Well, one day we chewed the rag back and forth all day. It was a close game, and it looked like every decision went against us. But we kept it pretty good-natured at that. That is, until the 8th inning. When the Dodgers have got the tying run on second base, somebody hits a single to center. And I'll swear Terry Moore throws a strike, and I'm sure that runner is out at the plate. But Reardon calls him safe, and I turn in disgust to patient, and I'm really mad, Frank. But my back's to Reardon, and he don't hear what I'm saying. So he throws off that old Civil War mask of his and strides out to the mound and says, Dizzy, what did you say? And I barks back at him, Beans, you've been guessing out here all afternoon. Now you just guess what I said.
And now I guess, Dizzy, that it's time for the big league picture as Dizzy Dean, the reporter, sees it. What's cooking that's hot, Jerome?
If you want something hot, Frank, I can't think of nothing hotter than that American League race. Just last week, I said the Red Sox would pass them Indians, and they sure done it. The Yankees haven't turned the trick yet, but I still figure they'll be up there with Boston in a ding-dong race.
Well, Diz, how do you account for the way the Athletics are staying up there in a contending position? The club must have something. It's past the flash stage.
You said it, Frank. You can't be a flash and hang on through July. I've heard a lot of explanations about why the Athletics is up there, but I got a theory of my own. I'm passing up all the details about pitching and hitting. I'm giving the credit to that grand old man of baseball, Connie Mack. I don't believe there could be a more popular team than the A's. If they could hang on, then put on a spurt down the stretch and qualify for the World Series.
You must have something there, Dizzy. I've heard fans saying all season that they couldn't see what was holding up the Athletics. But I guess if you walk all around them, you'll see a pretty good support. Connie Mack knows what it's all about.
And he did a great job of building, Frank, without spending a lot of money. Some people keep saying that Connie Mack has a team of discards. I look at it in another way. Connie Mack has a team of players who know what to do. They've had experience. They make the right play in them close games. And when you know how and when you got a good pitching, brother, you got something, Frank.
Yeah, but nobody has done too much about that big first-place margin of the Boston Braves in the National League, Diz.
No, but there's a sign of life and trouble just below, Frank. I was looking at the National League schedule for the last few days of the season. The last 7 games for the Braves is with the Giants and Dodgers. And in that last 9 days, Boston plays the Giants 2 games, then the Dodgers 3 games, and the last 2 is with the Giants. Frank, there's going to be a lot of excitement around the East them last few days. The way I see it, mark what I said, Frank. There's some excitement you don't want to fail to miss.
And, folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, a wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Carnu cleans when you rub it on, gets the bugs, tree sap, oil, and tar that water won't touch, and it polishes when you wipe it off. To give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on, wipe it off. That's all you do with Carnu.
And this is old Diz. Hope all you folks in the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eschen saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Well, here he is again, folks, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. I want to congratulate you all on the fine, slick-looking cars I've been seeing lately. You all must have been taking that advice from Frank Ashen that's been passing out every Saturday. Congratulations, everybody.
Say, that's rather a long word, Mr. Dean, that you use. Next thing you know, you'll be felicitating your listeners.
Not on your life, Frank. I got better manners than that. But I did practice a lot on that congratulations, and it shows that practice will do. But I guess the guy that wrote me a letter last week was right. I got to be careful.
Got to be careful about what, Diz?
About them big words. He said, Dear Dizzy, I heard you the other night, and you used some mighty fancy words. Remember, if you ever get an education, you're ruined.
Don't worry about that, Diz. You won't be ruined. You're one of the most versatile persons I know. You'll always be able to adapt whatever you have, whatever you are, to the exigencies of the moment. That is to say, whatever it takes, you'll have. And Diz, right now, what it takes is an answer to the mailbag, and a good one today. Mr. James Allen of Chicago wants you to tell him what usually goes first with a ball player. That is, does he lose his ability to hit, to run, or throw when Father Time catches up with his big league career? To paraphrase that, is it failing eyes, weary legs, or loss of pitching power that causes a big leaguer to know it's about time to look around for that old rocking chair?
Brother, that's a large order, but it's a good question. I reckon it depends on a lot what you are doing on the ball field, Frank. Now, take me. I was all right till I got a sore arm. I still could hit, and if it hadn't been for my arm, I'd tried for the outfield. I was a pretty good hitter, you know. But I guess Mr. Allen's thinking of players besides pitchers. Let's take a couple. I'll never forget Frankie Frisch, for instance, as he wound up a great career. There's a couple of stories on Frankie to give you an idea of what I mean.
Dizzy Dean, the anecdote man. And that's a good way to answer a question. Diz, proceed.
It was one of those midweek afternoons in St. Louis, Frank. You know, before they got around to playing mostly night baseball. The Cardinals wasn't in the race much that year, and there was only a few cash customers at this here ball game I'm talking about. You know, a nice, quiet afternoon with no noise. Well, along about the 8th inning, Frisch decides he'd bat for the pitcher in the hopes of starting a rally. And as Frankie walked from the dugout swinging a couple of bats, one of them leather-lunged guys in the grandstand broke the silence. He yelled out so you could hear him all over the ballpark. Come on, Father Time. Frankie turns a little red in the face, but he was a quick man with a comeback. He walked up to the plate and says to Beans Reardon, the umpire, Beans, who's that guy yelling at me? You or me? And Beans says, go ahead, hit, Frisch. You know who he's yelling at. I'm just a young feller.
Diz, was that Frisch's last appearance?
No, I'll never forget the guy, the day Frisch really quit playing baseball. We was playing at Philadelphia, and Frankie was at second base that day. He could still hit, and he knew the hitters. He wasn't hurting the ball club any, but in the late innings, with Frisch on second and Terry Moore on first, Joe Medrick socks a base hit to right. When you're on baseline like that, you've got to be sure not to run until you're certain the ball ain't going to be caught. Anyhow, when Frisch finally seen that Medrick's hit was going safe, he took off for third. Boy, how Frisch was trying to run. He rounded third, but that time we was all scared Terry Moore was going to pass him and get called out. Terry was gaining on Frisch every step. And just as Frisch slid for the plate, Moore slid, too, and almost took an arm off of Frisch. That was the end of the playing trail for the old Fordham Flash. He got to his feet, brushed himself off, hobbled to the dugout, and said to Stu Martin, Stewart, you go out to second base. When a man catches me on them bases when I got a 30-yard head start, boys, it's time for the old Flash to quit. And Stu Martin was an regular second baseman from then on.
Well, that's one vote, Dizzy, for the theory that the legs are the first to go back on an aging ball player.
Yes, I guess that's the number one reason, Frank. But occasionally a man who can still run like a deer loses his batting eye or his batting power. You heard that story about Paul Wainer, didn't you, Frank?
No, but I know I'm going to hear it.
Paul was getting along in years. He had left Pittsburgh and was with the Boston Braves. They went over to Sanford, Florida to play an exhibition game. Casey Stengel was managing the club that year. While sitting on the bench, Paul Wainer turned to Stengel and said, Case, what's that there advertising sign on the fence? And Stengel turns around kind of surprised and said, Paul, are you kidding? Can't you see that sign? And Paul said, no, Case, I can't see it. My eyes must be going back on me. Paul was still pretty clever up there at the plate, though. The way he hit plenty of them line drives, you'd never think there was nothing wrong with his eyes. Anyhow, Stengel asked Paul when he had noticed his eyes was going back on him, and Paul says, all the last couple of years I noticed the ball don't look as big as it used to, coming up to the plate. And Stengel says, well, how does it look to you now, Paul? And Paul says, oh, it looks just about the size of a baseball. And Stengel says, for goodness sake, how did it used to look? And Wainer says, just as serious as he can be. Casey, until just a couple of years ago, that baseball coming up to the plate looked as big as a grapefruit.
Yes, no wonder he was a great hitter, Diz. In fact, there were a couple of tough hitters named Wainer. And I'll never forget what old Grover Cleveland Alexander said on a railway station platform at the end of one of his last big league seasons. The Cardinals had played their last game of the season. It was on the road. Everybody was going home, and they were talking about what they planned to do. Old Pete Alexander wasn't saying very much. One of the baseball writers asked him how he was going to pass the off-season. And Pete replied, "I think I'll go home to Nebraska, get a couple of sacks of corn cobs, and practice how to pitch to those Wainer boys."
Old Pete said a mouthful, Frank. It was tough pitching to them Wainers.
Yeah, something like trying to find Stan Musial's weakness, eh, Diz?
Oh, didn't you know, Frank? One pitcher's found how to pitch to Musial. His name is Preacher Rowe, a left-hander with the Dodgers.
Very interesting, Diz. And just what is Preacher Rowe's formula for stopping the Cardinal star slugger?
Well, Frank, during a Cardinal-Brooklyn game the other day in St. Louis, a couple of Brooklyn pitchers was talking on the bench how they would pitch to Stan, and Rowe says, I got a better plan than that, boys. The best way to pitch to Musial is to give him 4 straight balls good and wide at the plate, and then pick him off at first.
You'll never get a hit that way. That's a fine idea. Say, Diz, you answer a lot of questions on this show.
Yes, sir, I sure do, and I like it.
Well, that's fine, because there's another question I'd like to ask you. Are you fussy about the way your car looks?
Well, nobody ain't never called me Fussy Dean, but barring that word fussy, I can tell you that there ain't nothing I like better than driving a high, shiny, pretty-looking car.
Well, men, I guess we all agree with Dizzy on that. The trouble is, cleaning and polishing a car is some job. Unless, of course, you've got some Carnu stashed away in your garage. That's Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. Carnu makes cleaning easy because Carnu contains special ingredients that cut right through the road film that clings to the finish of your car. You know, that sticky, oily road film that water can't touch. But Johnson's Carnu does something else, too. Carnu is wax-fortified, and so it polishes your car, makes it shine like a million. Just rub it on, let it dry to a white powder, and wipe it off. Your car is cleaned and polished in one easy application. Rub it on, wipe it off. That's all there is to it. You've got a car that sparkles all over. A car that you or I or Dizzy Dean would be proud to ride in. So right after this program, drop in at your dealer's or your nearest filling station and get some Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. That's C-A-R-N-U. Carnu your car today, and tomorrow drive a car with a real Sunday shine. Now, Diz, could you regale us with one of your baseball stories?
Yes, Frank, we was talking a while back about Casey Stengel, and it reminded me one of a story about old Case. It was one of those funniest characters I ever seen in baseball, and he's got a big laugh out of this one. Casey was managing the Brooklyn Dodgers, and one of his pitchers was named Boom Boom Beck. Boom Boom got that nickname while he was playing over at Phillies in the old Baker Bowl, with that short right field and a high tin fence. The batters used to tee off on Beck now and then, and one day when they was hitting one after another against that tin fence, and each would make a loud boom, somebody said, "Boom Boom Beck loses another." And before you know it, Beck's nickname is Boom Boom. Well, in the same Baker Bowl one day, Beck was pitching for the Dodgers, and the Dodgers got off to a 5-run lead. But in the 5th inning, the Phillies start teeing off on Boom Boom, and manager Casey Stengel walks out to the mound for a conference. Hack Wilson is playing right field for the Dodgers, and he's a little tired from chasing a couple of extra base hits, and he sits down in the grass to rest his feet. Meantime, Stengel decides to take Beck out of the box, and Beck doesn't like it. He's still ahead, and he wants to stay at least 5 innings, long enough to get credit for the game if the Dodgers win. So he gets mad when Stengel wants to take him out. Beck turns around, throws the ball with all his might to right field. The ball hits that tin wall with a loud boom, and Hack Wilson thinks the game must have got started again mighty quick. He figures somebody just nicked Boom Boom for another base hit. So he jumps to his feet, races after the ball, wheels, and makes one of the finest throws you ever seen, right to the home plate. And was his face red when he sees did all that running and made that fine throw for nothing. After the game, he wanted to wring Beck's neck.
I'll bet. Knowing Stengel as I do, Diz, I know that if that ball game was lost, the story that he got out of it took all the sting out of being vanquished.
Yep, that Stengel sure loved a joke. You heard about the time he gave the Polo Grounds fans the bird, sure enough, didn't you, Frank?
No, but we can always use another Stengel story, Diz.
Well, a short one, Frank. Old Case was about the end of his trail, and the fans at the Polo Grounds had started riding him. He had a couple of bad breaks in the outfield, It was along in the spring, and out in right field, Casey had seen a baby sparrow, just about able to fly. At the end of the inning, when it was his turn at bat, first in the New York half, he caught the sparrow without making no fuss about it and put it in his cap. He goes to the bat rack, and gets a bat and walks up to the plate. He knew what was coming all right. The fans give him the Bronx cheer, one of them phooey rounds of applause. Well, Casey stepped away from the plate and made a fancy bow, taking off his cap real careful, and as he did, the little sparrow flew out. See what I mean, Frank? Casey give the stands the bird.
Ah, yes, Diz. Casey Stengel would be just the man to turn the tables on the fans like that. Now it's time for you to turn on your wisdom for the benefit of America's youthful ball players. What is your advice today for young men who want to get into that big league? Dizzy Dean, the coach?
It's a short lesson today, Frank. We've talked about pitching and catching, outfielding and infielding. And this is a little general advice. Advice for sandlot teams, let's call it, Frank. When a green rookie breaks into pro baseball, one of the tough things for him is to learn about playing baseball with signs. All right, let's start on the sandlot. Get together with your manager or captain. Have a meeting at somebody's house. Work out a set of signs. They can be simple. If you touch red or on your uniform, you're going to try to hit and run. If you touch leather, you're going to sacrifice. Or if the coach calls you by your first name, it's a steal sign. Get yourself a set of signs, boys, and start playing like the professionals. It'll be a lot of fun. You'll be able to go through a ball game without having to whisper in anybody's ear. And it'll come in handy when you hit the minor league club. If you know how to operate on the sign system, boys, you'll be a big league before you know it.
Well, I can visualize a lot of weekend meetings of boys' baseball clubs, Diz, and it sounds like a lot of extra fun for the youngsters who like to play ball. Now, for the older men who play baseball, big league baseball, what do you see in the crystal ball, Dizzy Dean, the reporter?
I see 3 little steam shovels, and they're kind of shaky, Frank.
Steam shovels and shaky. What can that mean, Jerome?
It means that Billy Southworth's Braves haven't got that big fat lead they had a couple of weeks ago, Frank. And them 3 little steam shovels feel mighty bad about it. That's what they call Mr. Louis Barini and his 2 partners who bought the Braves a few years ago. They're all 3 of them contractors. And when they started working on the Braves, the newspapermen in Boston gave them that nickname, the 3 little steam shovels.
And I imagine, Dizzy, that in the background you see in that crystal ball a few little redbirds, don't you?
And they're flying in the right directions, Frank. They're climbing.
And say, I see another manager was fired last night.
Yes, Frank, and it's the same old story. There ain't enough pennants to go around, so 4 National League managers get fired. Now it's Johnny Noon. And I guess a sore arm done it.
Now, wait a minute, a sore arm? I didn't know that managers got sore arms.
It wasn't Noon that had a sore arm, Frank. Ewell Blackwell got the sore arm, so Johnny Noon gets fired. Frank, I hate to see a good guy like that get the gate. But it give another good guy a chance. I want to wish Bucky Wallers, one of the finest gentlemen in baseball, the best of luck. And being a manager, he'll need it, Frank. Brother, I'm glad I'm a broadcaster.
And, folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Carnu cleans when you rub it on, sweeps the road film right off your car, film that water won't touch. Carnu polishes when you wipe it off, makes your car prettier to look at than a ninth-inning rally. Remember, to give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on, wipe it off, is all you do with Carnu.
And this is Old Diz. Hope all you folks understands this time next Saturday, I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Well, here he is again, folks. Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, everybody. Gather around, you young baseball players, especially you city boys. I've got a story about kids in the baseball diamond, and I believe it's something that all you young fellows can learn a lesson from.
Coach Dizzy Dean is going into action early today. I can see that. This is Frank Eschen to remind you that every Saturday at this time, Dizzy Dean gives advice to baseball-minded young Americans, answers letters, that's the mailbag department, spins a few of his inimitable yarns about the great and the near great of the diamond, and looks at the big league pennant races. And as a starter today, let's have your story for the youngsters, Coach Dean.
I got this idea just 1 week ago, Frank. I've been thinking about it a lot. Last Saturday, after our program for Johnson's Car New, I said to Pat, that's my wife, Mrs. Dean, let's take a nice ride somewhere out in the country. I'd like to see a lot of trees and some hills.
Ah, the great Dean had an urge to commune with nature, to visit pastoral scenes, eh?
Maybe what you're saying is true, Frank, but all I wanted was to get away from crowds in the hot city streets. Well, Pat said it would be all right for us to take a ride. The car was just as slick and shiny as any I hear you talking about. You see, I feel a responsibility now, and I guess you feel it too, Frank. We just got to have shiny cars. Anyhow, we set out for a ride, and I says, let's go out Highway 30. That's about as pretty a drive as I know in these here parts. So out Highway 30 we went. We left the concrete slab about 30 miles out and took a gravel road in Jefferson County, out through the little town of Cedar Hill. It reminded me of the village in Switzerland.
Well, I didn't know you were such a man of travel, Diz. When were you in Switzerland?
I never said nothing about being in Switzerland, Frank. But ain't you never heard of moving pictures? Go to the movies, I say, and see the world.
Okay, you win. Go on.
Well, it was just outside of Cedar Hill, Frank, that I got the idea for something to tell the young ball players about. We climbed a hill, rounded a curve, and went down in a kind of a valley. And there on the side of the road was a big open field. It was the Cedar Hill baseball field, Frank. Some young fellows had a farm tractor on the infield, and they were pulling a big drag. They had that infield smooth as a billiard table. And out in the outfield, there was another farm tractor pulling a mower. They had the weeds down slick as could be. You know, Frank, them country kids can learn us a thing or two. In the big cities, they got park baseball diamonds, and they're all ready when the kids show up for a ball game. But those country boys really love baseball. Here they was, Saturday evening, when most city kids would be getting ready to go skylarking, manicuring their baseball diamond, and mowing the outfield so they have a nice smooth field to play their weekly ball games on. I couldn't help thinking what a grip this here game of baseball has on us, Frank.
And those boys in the small towns really have something, Diz. Don't most of the big league ball players come from the little towns, the farms, and the mining country?
I guess that's because them country kids ain't afraid to work, Frank. You see, you can play baseball so much better on a slick field like that. The bounces are more truer for the infielders, and the outfielders really got a lot of territory to roam in. And that Cedar Hill business gave me another thought, Frank. You know, there was a cornfield just beyond the baseball field. It wasn't crowding the ball field none, but what I mean is it was good, fertile land, right there close to the big river. But somebody who owned that land thought enough of kids and the kids' right to play baseball to pass up that much of his corn crop, so them kids could have their baseball diamond and their baseball. Frank, there's a lot of big cities that could take a lesson from what I've seen at Cedar Hill. Why don't the cities provide more baseball diamonds for the youngsters, Frank?
You're fighting for a good cause, Jerome. More power to that movement for more baseball diamonds for the youngsters. But you've lapsed into another very serious mood. How about a quick change of pace, Diz, right now, and an anecdote in the manner of Dizzy Dean the storyteller?
Okay, Frank. And while we started out about kids, let's go along with that same general idea. You remember Babe Herman, don't you?
Yes, indeed, and that sounds good. Babe Herman was good copy.
The Babe had traveled around quite a bit, but he was the same old Babe. He was playing in Cincinnati, and the Cardinals was playing the Reds, and before the game, Babe's 2 children was outside the clubhouse. Babe was sure proud of them kids. He always was telling us how bright they was. So after shaking hands with the children and giving them freely of my autographs, I said to Babe, Babe, you always been bragging about how smart these kids are. How about a little demonstration for Pepper Martin and me, right here and now? Well, the Babe didn't know nothing he'd rather do than show off them kids. So he said to the younger one, Honey, how many is 6 times 2? And the youngster spoke real quick and said, Daddy, 14. And the Babe says, Not bad, ain't Dizzy? He's only one off. Well, Pepper Martin got a big laugh out of that, and he says, Babe, them really are smart, intelligent children. But that old one seems to be old enough now. Why don't you get him in a encyclopedia? We all agree that it would be fine-eyed, but Babe Herman thinks it's over for a while, and then he says, no, Pepper, I don't want to spoil either of them kids. Let 'em walk to school like I did.
A real colorful character, that Babe Herman.
He sure was, Frank. I heard one story about him that made my eyes pop out. That was back in the lean days of the Dean family, before I hit the jackpot. Babe Herman showed up in training camp one spring, and while he was unpacking his trunk, he found a paycheck from the summer before that had been in the trunk all winter. Frank, it was hard for old Diz with them lean early days to figure how a man could be so rich that he'd just throw a paycheck into his trunk and forget all about it, cashing it.
Mm-hmm. Then you hit the jackpot, Diz, and I guess as you pitched those masterpieces against Carl Hubble, you too forgot about those checks occasionally.
Those games with the Giants were something, Frank. This is just a short story, and it's about that old favorite of mine, Pepper Martin. You know, we did have some great games with the Giants, and I guess one of the toughest hitters I ever faced was the manager of the ball club. I'm talking about Bill Terry. I always liked to pitch against Bill, even if he did make it kind of rough for me. One day I had him 2 strikes and nothing real quick. I tried to sneak the next one through there, and Terry hit it right back through the box, a mile a minute. Brother, he like to took a leg off old Diz's. And Pepper Martin was playing third base for us then, and while I was getting ready to pitch to the next hitter, Pepper walks over to the mound, and he was really a-grinning. He put up his hands so nobody else could hear it, and he says, real serious, Jerome, I don't believe you're playing Terry deep enough.
Say, that Pepper Martin was really something, Diz. And here's something else that is really something.
You don't mean Johnson's Carnu, do you?
That's just what I mean.
Tell him about it, Frankie boy.
Well, men, when this program is over, take a good look at your car. Does the finish really sparkle, really shine the way you want it to? Now, I'm not suggesting that your car isn't clean, but you know as well as I do, you can sponge your car till your arm feels like lead and still come out with a pretty dull-looking finish. And the reason is usually road film. A road film composed of tree sap, oil, exhaust fumes, a lot of different things. Water can't touch that film, but Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu zips it away, and Carnu polishes your car, too. Johnson's Carnu cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. You rub it on, and the 5 cleaning ingredients in Carnu go to work. Penetrate road film in practically nothing flat. Then wipe it off, and your car is polished as well as cleaned, because Carnu is wax-fortified. So why wear yourself out cleaning and polishing your car in the ordinary way? Today, get some Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu from your nearest dealer or service station. That is C-A-R-N-U, Carnu. Might as well use it today. Might as well have a car with a bright, brilliant Sunday shine tomorrow. Now it's mailbag time, Diz. And here's a letter from Colonel Harry Taylor of Dublin, Georgia, who remembers you as a great pitcher who occasionally ran into unusual excitement on the baseball field. He says that as he remembers it, you had a fist fight once with Al Todd in the Texas League, and later with the entire New York Giant Ball Club at Sportsman's Park here in St. Louis.
Glad to hear from Colonel Taylor, Frank. I played an exhibition game in Dublin one time. They got a real Southern hospitality down there in Georgia. And about them 2 fights, Frank, I guess I was overmatched in both of them.
Sounds good. Let's have the story of an overmatched Dizzy Dean.
Well, that Todd story won't take long. Al got the idea one day that I was throwing at him, just because he got a base hit. I didn't throw at him, Frank. Honest, I didn't. Or maybe I was trying to move him back from the plate, just a little. Anyhow, Al got the idea I was throwing at him, and the next time up, and he charges out to the mound. I figured I could out-talk him, but he didn't say a word. I was waiting, and I had a good wisecrack to let him have. But he popped me without a word, and I kept picking myself up, and he kept knocking me down. Yes, I guess I was overmatched, Frank.
An honest confession is good for the soul, Jerome. And now that rumpus with the Giants.
I guess Colonel Taylor must be referring to the famous row with the day George Barr called a balk on old Diz. Well, Frank, a lot of funny things happened that afternoon, but I didn't have no fight with nobody. I came in off that without swinging a fist and without getting a scratch. But both teams was on the field swinging, and it looked like a long time to get order restored. In the center of all the fussing and the feuding, the 2 catchers, Gus Mancuso and Mickey Owen, had a little harmless wrestling match. Mickey figured everybody ought to take a man. He was a catcher, so he chose Mancuso, the Giants catcher, and said, Gus, let's wrestle. Well, when they got everybody quiet, it looked up that Mancuso and Owen was the only ones caught doing anything for sure. So they was ordered out of the game. The only man hurt that day was the most peaceful guy on the field, little Don Guthridge.
He didn't hit nobody, but somebody sure hit him. He came out the scrap with the most beautiful black eye I ever seen. What a shiner that was. Frankie Frisch, our dandy little manager, was furious. When they put out Owen, Frisch said to umpire Barr, "How about bouncing Mel Ott, too?" "What for?" Barr wanted to know. "For hitting little Guthridge," Frisch told him. Barr said he hadn't seen nobody hit Guthridge and started to walk away. But Leo DeRocher tells Barr, "Ain't you going to put Luke out of the game?" "What for?" says Barr. "For hitting Guthridge," says DeRocher. Just then Barr ran into Jess Haynes, and old Pop says, "George, you aren't going to let Chiozza stay in the game, are you?" And Barr says, "Mr. Haynes, you're not going to tell me that Chiozza hit Guthridge." "He sure did hit him, George," Haynes insisted. "Just look at that eye." Barr did look at Guthridge's eye, and he said afterward that the way it looked, maybe everybody on the Giant Club had teed off on poor little Don.
Yeah, but Diz, isn't that one of those rare cases where anybody actually got hurt in a baseball, Donnybrook? I mean, usually it's largely a matter of exchanging words at any given number of paces, but seldom a blow landed.
That's right, Frank. In the excitement of a ball game, players will pop off and say things they really don't mean. Sometimes they'll even scrap among themselves on the bench or in the clubhouse, especially in a tight pennant race, with everybody pulling hard and the dough hanging on every play. Like the time we lost a tough ball game in New York. An outfielder and an infielder on the old gas house gang got to jawing at each other when we got into the clubhouse. But the race was hot in the stretch, and everybody was pretty well keyed up right then. They started swinging at each other as soon as they got into the clubhouse. We all started to break it up, but manager Frankie Frisch had his own idea. He says, "Stand back, fellas. Give 'em room. Don't nobody interfere." So the outfielders and the infielders swung at each other. They couldn't hit their weight fighting, though, and ball players ain't trained for boxing. They soon got out of wind, and you could see both was wanting to hear the bell. Then Frisch stepped in and asked, real fancy, if each one felt now that he had defended his honor satisfactorily. They both agreed as they had, so Frisch made them put their arms around each other and then shake hands. "You're both on the same team, see?" Frankie told them. "So fight the other fellows from here on. Don't fight amongst yourselves."
Ah, better than average psychologist, that Frisch. Now, Mr. Dean, we come to the right and wrong part of the program. That is, how right and how wrong have you been in your prognostications? Let's look at that big league picture as it is today. Mr. Dean, the reporter.
Frank, I'm satisfied right now if I can be just half right the way those ball clubs are scrambling around. But let's forget the top of the pennant races for a while. I want to say something about a club down into second division of the American League. I'm talking about the St. Louis Browns.
And what about the Browns make you select them for your spotlight, Professor Dean?
A couple of young ball players, Frank. Their names is Dick Kokas and Hank Arp, and they're giving the Browns a big lift. And they're going to help the Browns in more ways than one, Frank.
Elucidate, Diz, elucidate.
It's this way, Frank. When a couple of young fellows get a chance, and it attracts a lot of attention. The Browns brought Arp and Kokas up from Toledo. That's a great break for them kids, and it's good advertising for the Browns. Here's the way it works. Kids all over the country wanting to get ahead as fast as possible will hear about this, and they'll say, them Browns is a club that is giving young fellows a chance right now. And so the young ball players will be looking for some Brownish scout to show up.
And, folks, we hope you'll show up again at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Rub it on, and Carnu cleans your car, cuts through and carries away road film that water won't touch. Wipe it off, and Carnu polishes your car. Remember, to give your car a Sunday shine, rub it on, wipe it off. That's all you do with Carnu.
And this is Old Diz. Hope all you folks are in the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Well, here he is again, folks. Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Frank, how about you and me talking a little bit about Stan Musial, the star hitter of the Cardinals? Ted Williams, the slugging hero of the Boston Red Sox. and their respectable batting averages.
All right, Diz. Friends, this is Frank Eschen, very happy to collaborate with Jerome Herman Dizzy Dean in a discussion of two great hitters. But, Dizzy, you mean Musial and Williams and their respective averages, I dare say.
Go ahead and dare say all you want, Frank. But I'd like to ask you a question before you start dare saying any more.
Shoot, Jerome. Always eager to cooperate.
Well, Frank, the last time I looked, Musial was hitting .376 and Williams was hitting .365. Frank, don't you think them as respectable averages?
Touche, Jerome, touche. Yes, I'll admit you were right the first time. Those are very respectable averages, and I'll go even a little further along the Dizzy Dean rhetorical highway. I'd say that those two batters have hit for a lot of respectable bases. But what was the other point besides your sinister desire to catch me in a grammatical trap?
I was going to say, Frank, that I guess most folks will admit that Williams and Musial is about as good a pair of natural hitters that has come along in a long time. They both got off to a great start, but they won't finish with that .400 average the baseball writers and radio commentators was talking about early in the season.
A difficult objective to achieve, Jerome.
It's more than that, Frank. It's just doggone tough to hit .400. At one time, they was both over .400, as I remember, and it was really something to try to keep up that pace. And any time they'd get only 2 out of 5, which is hitting .400 for the day, they'd drop a point or two. And that meant that in order to keep pace, or maybe gain a little, they'd have to get 2 for 4, which is .500, or 3 for 5, which is .600. The point I want to make, Frank, is that anybody who ever hits .400 in the major leagues really has something to be proud of.
And so, to take a leaf from your book, Diz, anybody who is hitting .376 or .365 can feel comfortable in having a respectable batting average. Now, Diz, we come to the mailbag department. We have 2 letters today. Mr. William Shambaugh of Cincinnati writes about pitchers. He notes that so many of them are unable to hurl many complete games, wilting after only 4 or 5 innings. And he recalls Rube Waddell, who rarely reported at the park except on days when he was due to pitch. And almost without exception, Rube was able to finish what he started. Mr. Shambaugh suggests that it might be a good idea to give pitchers a couple of days off, Diz, so they'd have the necessary rest, and perhaps they'd be able to pitch more complete games.
Frank, that idea probably will make a big hit with the pitchers. Boy, that would be fine, to have a couple of days off to go fishing or something, without having to worry about the ballpark. But I think the manager would raise a big kick about that. You see, Frank, there's the matter of staying in condition. A pitcher has to run a lot. He ain't going to keep his legs in shape sitting on a riverbank with a fishing pole in his hand.
And here's another thing, Diz. Doesn't the average manager like to have his better pitchers available for an occasional relief job?
Right you are, Frank. The year me and Paul won 50 games between us, I reckon we saved maybe a dozen more, helping out now and then with an inning or 2 to stop a rally or protect a small lead. Then I used to break in now and then as a pinch runner or a pinch batter myself.
Yes. You were an asset of great versatility, Diz.
It wasn't so much that, Frank. I could get a hold of that old ball once in a while. Boy, I love to hit. I'll never forget one game when I went to hit for somebody. The other club had walked Bill Delancey, a good left-hand batter, to get at the pitcher. And Frankie Frisch calls old Diz from the bullpen. He tells me the bases is loaded, but we're 3 runs behind. Funny how managers always tell those things, when for pity's sakes I was watching as close as old Frankie was. Anyhow, he told me to try to get on. Well, the count gets to 3 balls and nothing, and I don't look at third base at all. I know what the sign is, though. I could see out of the corner of my eye that Mike Gonzalez was giving the take sign. But I knew the pitcher was in the hole. He knew the take sign was on. I knew he grew one for old Diz, trying to get back somewhere even on the count. Sure enough, he grooves one, a nice fat fastball. And Frank, I couldn't hold back. I let her have it and pounded that old ball clear into the left field seats. As I passed third base, Mike Gonzalez was having a fit. Dizzy, he says, "You crazy. Why you swing at that ball? Don't you know the count? She is 3-0, and we was 3 runs behind?" And I says, "Keep your shirt on, Mike. I know we was 3 runs behind, but we ain't no more."
What kind of a fit did Frisch have then, Diz?
Oh, he just shook his head and called me some kind of a dumb lucky stiff.
Yes, but I dare say Frisch was glad you weren't taking a day off fishing that afternoon.
Yeah, Frank, see what I mean?
Yes, I think you win that one from Mr. Shambaugh, Diz. And here's the other letter from the mailbag. Mr. Stuart Boggs of Philadelphia wants to know something about the importance of jockeys in baseball, and did the old gas house gang go in much for that sort of stuff? First of all, Diz, you might explain what a jockey is.
Glad to, Frank. In horse racing, a jockey rides a horse. In baseball, the jockey rides the other team. And while the baseball jockey don't use no spurs or no whip, he can sting you plenty. Yes, I guess the dugout jockey always has been and always will be a part of the game, Frank. And we used to break out in a little jockeying now and then in them good old gas house gang days. I'll tell you one time we really went to town, Frank, in the 1934 World Series.
Yes, I seem to recall there were some sharp harpoons thrown during that October Classic, Jerome. Remarks that were very, we might say ex cathedra, with authority, that is.
No, we never let religion get into our jockeying, Frank. But we had a lot of fun with them Tigers. We called them pussycats all through the series. And we got a little help from the Tigers and the Detroit papers.
How is that? That sounds like treason.
Well, for one thing, Schoolboy Rowe did a little ad-libbing on the radio. He was on a program, and his heart was full of honeymoon at that particular time. And in a pause, he spoke a few words to his bride. He says, "How am I doing, Edna?" And, brother, I bet he wished many a time he'd never said that. He sure was miserable out there, trying to pitch with Pat Crawford, our number one jockey, and all the others asking out loud how he was doing, Edna. Then the Detroit papers give us some material. Mickey Cochran was injured in some kind of a play, and, of course, Detroit was all excited about that. One of the papers come out with a big headline, clear across the top of the first page, which with news of Cochran's injury. And there was a big picture of Mike, and under it, also in big type, it said, "Our stricken leader." Boy, we got mileage out of that one. Mickey didn't show his nose anywhere without some jockey starting a cheer for our stricken leader. Frank, it sure was a lot of fun pitching for that old gas house gang. And, Frank, we got paid for it, too.
Yes, and here's something that you'll get paid for in the form of extra special Sunday satisfaction. Some advice, Dizzy, for those who like to get the utmost pleasure out of their cars. You know, men, if you're going to drive a bright, keen-looking automobile, one thing is certain. You've got to get rid of road film. You know, that sticky film made up of exhaust fumes, oil, bugs, and a lot of other things. Now, water can't touch that film, and so week after week it keeps collecting on your paint and chrome. Your car loses its sparkle so gradually that you may even forget how bright and shiny it used to look. Well, you can bring back that sparkle. You can bring it back in one easy application with Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. Johnson's Carnu contains 5 cleaning ingredients, that's why. Those ingredients cut right through that road film, carry it away, let the real finish of your car show through. And because Carnu is wax-fortified, Carnu polishes your car, too. It gives the car finish the bright beauty it had the day it left the showroom. And remember, it's all done in one application. You just rub Carnu on, let it dry to a white powder, and wipe it off. Your car is cleaned and polished from bumper to bumper, from top to hubcaps. So before this weekend is over, drop in on your service station owner or other dealer and get some Carnu. C-A-R-N-U, Johnson's Carnu. Then just rub it on, wipe it off, and see that brilliant shine come back. That Sunday shine you may have thought was gone forever. Now, Diz, with that sound advice on its way, I agree with you that it must have been a lot of fun traveling with those colorful Cardinals.
That's what the baseball writers used to say, Frank. They didn't get much sleep, but there never was a dull moment. Pepper Martin and Rip Collins had a fancy Dan Pepper game they'd put on during practice. It always wowed the crowd. But don't forget there was a lot of baseball in that club, Frank. Terry Moore, Leo DeRocher, Joe Medrick, Rip Collins, and Frankie Frisch.
And it was all good-natured fun, too, Diz. I mean, the boys always were in shape to play a lot of baseball.
You said it, Frank. Baseball was them boys' life. That's all they thought about, outside of having a little fun. But I know what you mean. There was no playboys on that ball club. A playboy just couldn't stay long on that club.
And that sounds like a story, Diz.
I won't say what year this was or what club it was, Frank, because it's a true story, and I don't want nobody to know exactly who I'm talking about. But there was one pitcher who liked to stay up kind of late. He didn't know how to take care of his money, either. And the manager, knowing this pitcher had a family back home, arranged with the front office to send the pitcher's paycheck to his wife, so the family would be sure to have some money. You see, this pitcher was liable to give it all away. He was so big-hearted when he got on the evening merry-go-round. Well, late in the season, there was an important ball game coming up the next day. Maybe the pennant would hang on it. And this pitcher I'm telling you about really could throw that ball when he was right. So the manager tells him he's going to pitch that important game the next day, and would he please get home early that night so he'd be in shape. It didn't do no good, though. The pitcher got on the merry-go-round just the same that evening and didn't get home till the sun was up. You could see when he checked in at the ballpark that he hadn't been taking care of himself. The manager catches on right away, and he's madder than a wet hen. He said to the pitcher, Joe, that was his pitcher's name, wasn't the pitcher's name, Frank. I'm just using a pon de tar. I just call him Joe. Anyhow, the manager says, Joe, I asked you to take care of yourself so you could pitch this important game. And just look at you. But in shape or not, I said you were going to pitch, and doggone you are going to pitch. And the pitcher cracks back, I'll be doggone if I pitch, Mac. You send my paychecks to my wife. Let her pitch.
Well, now, Diz, it's your turn to pitch. Coach Dean, will you give out now with your weekly parcel of advice to young Americans to help them in their ambition to become big leaguers?
Yes, Frank, and maybe sometime we'll get some organized help from this IDL for the young ball players. I'm talking about the help young ball players can get from good coaching. Up to a certain stage, boys can go along on their own. They can learn to hit by practice. They can learn to catch flies and handle grounders the same way. But when they get a little older and are thinking about getting a tryout in a year or two, it's time to polish up their baseball. In other words, there's a right and a wrong way to do many important things in baseball. That's where it would help if the boys could arrange to have some expert coaching. In almost every city in the country, there are a few old ball players retired, but still interested in the game. Why not try to find such an old ball player in your town or neighborhood? I'll bet he'd be tickled to death to have you call on him and ask if he wouldn't give you a couple of hours of his time each week. He can show you how to tag runners. He can show the first baseman how to shift. He can show the shortstop and second baseman how to work double plays. You've got to know how to do them things right. And it wouldn't take much work to put a little sliding pit and have some old-time ball players learn you how to slide properly. Many a game in the big leagues is won by a hook slide or a quick double play. Baseball now has a fine pension plan. Old ball players can retire with some security. And my idea is to have baseball do something about this. And I'm talking right now to Mr. Ford Frisch and Mr. Will Harris, the two big league presidents. Why not include some kind of a coaching project in that there pension plan, Mr. Frisch and Mr. Harris? It'll give the old players something to do in the game they like so well. And it will do an awful lot for the kids. And it will help to develop more and better ball players to make the big leagues bigger and better.
Say, those are words of profound wisdom, Coach Dean. And now if you'll grab that crystal ball, you are now Dizzy Dean, the reporter. How about the big league setup, Diz, as you see it entering the head of the stretch? And what's going to be the deciding factor in the two races?
Pitching as I see it, Frank. For instance, the Yankees have been doing all right lately. Frank Shea, who was off form early in the year, seems to be okay now. That added help down the stretch could give the Yankees a big advantage. And in the National League, George Munger could make a big difference for the Cardinals. The Braves need some help for Spahn and Sane. Two men can carry the load for a while, but they get tired. If either should crack, it would be too bad for the Braves.
Diz, do you think that the schedule favors any particular club?
Well, most people think it does, Frank. For instance, the Yankees and Red Sox will close the season playing each other. The strength of the league is in the East. Some believe that gives Cleveland an edge down the stretch. In the National League, the Cardinals will have the tough Cubs and Pirates to play in the last few days. But the Dodgers and Braves play a late September series. The way I see it, Frank, you got to win those games down the stretch. And the second division clubs may be tougher than the ones up near the top.
Well, folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Carnu cleans when you rub it on, loosens road film, and carries it right off your car. Then Carnu polishes when you wipe it off, makes your car sparkle almost like new. Ask for Johnson's Carnu today. Save time, save work, while making your car as bright as $1. Remember to give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on, wipe it off, is all you do with Carnu.
And this is Old Diz. Hope all you folks are on the stand this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching across again for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eschen saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company.
WMAQ, NBC in Chicago.
Well, here he is again, folks. Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Frank, if it's all right with you, I got a short one about a great pitcher today, Ewell Blackwell of the Reds.
Well, that's fine, Jerome. Folks, this is Frank Eschen, happy to give Dizzy Dean the cue to go quickly today into the anecdote department. So let's have that Ewell Blackwell story, Diz.
I guess Blackwell is one of the toughest pitchers in the business when he's right, Frank. He really throws with a buggy whip motion. It looks like he's just handing the ball to the catcher. He powders him in so fast. Well, he was pitching against the Giants, and he was giving that New York team fits. Blackwell has one of the finest crossbar delivers I ever seen in any league, and he really had it working that day. You know how the crossbar works, Frank. You step off of the third base side of the rubber, and you stride toward the plate with a kind of a give on the third base side. That makes the ball go past you so funny at the plate it seems like it's going to land in the first base dugout. Well, Blackwell really had it working, and Jack Larky, the Giants' third baseman, was having all kinds of trouble. On the first pitch, Larky fell down the dirt, thinking the ball was going to hit him. But umpire Barr says, strike one. Larky was a little dazed, but he didn't say nothing. He just got up there again, and once more Blackwell comes in with that same crossbar fast one, and down goes Larky again. And this time Barr calls it again. Strike two. Larky gets up and dusts himself off and kind of turns to the umpire Barr and says, George, was them two pitches over the plate? And Barr says, yes, Jack, they were perfect strikes. They got at least 6 inches of that outside corner. That wasn't even close to being balls, and Larky still dusting himself off so nobody would think he was squawking to the umpire, says, George, will you tell me one thing? And Barr, who is one of the most politest umpires in the business, says, yes, Jack, what is it you wish to know? And Larky says, I wish you'd tell me, George, who's throwing them, Blackwell or the third baseman?
Well, Jerome, I believe you got at least 6 inches of the plate with that one. By the way, did you ever throw a crossfire when you were pitching?
No, Frank, I never needed a crossbar when I had my high hard one. And when I lost that one, it was too late.
Well, when do you know that high hard one isn't there anymore, Dizzy?
The batters will tell you that, Frank. But you hate to admit it. I remember a game after I was with the Cubs. We was playing in the Polo Grounds, and one of them New York power hitters connects in the ninth inning with a couple of men on base. He hits one of my fastballs a country mile into the right field stands, breaking up the ball game. We have to catch an early train that evening, and I'm still thinking about it as we pull out of Penn Station. And a fresh rookie pitcher sits down next to me in the Pullman and starts a conversation. He says, Dizzy, whatever become of your fastball?
Did you keep your temper in that trying moment, Jerome?
Yes, I did, Frank. I started to get hot, but I answered him real polite. I says, Sonny, you'll probably find it still bouncing around them upper right field seats at the Polo Grounds.
A very kindly way of handling a trying situation, Jerome. I'm proud of you. Now we come to the mailbag. Mrs. Dorothy O'Connor of Brooklyn wants you to pick an all-star major league team from the players you've seen in your career as a pitcher and as an observer from the radio booth.
Boy, that's a large order. But I'll give it a try, Frank. Only I want some help from you, and I want a little time. I've seen a lot of mighty fine ball players. Let's pick that all-star team next Saturday.
Well, I'm glad you're cautious, Jerome. I think it's a good idea to give that team some thought. And now from the mailbag, Mr. J. Donald Seidel of West Lawn, Pennsylvania, wants you to tell about an incident in the Bellevue Stratford Hotel in Philadelphia when you and a couple of your cardinal friends broke up the dignified quiet of that staid old hostelry with your antics. He remembers it had something to do with some sort of disguise the boys wore.
Yes, I remember, Frank. Mr. Seidel must mean the time me and Pepper Martin and Heine Schubel had some fun. It was an off day in Philly, and while we was winter shopping, Pepper sees some overalls and striped caps to match. He says he has an idea, and before we know it, we each got overalls and one of them caps. When we get back to the hotel, we change into the overalls and caps. Pepper borrows a hammer and a yardstick and says, "Follow me. I think we'll have some fun." We went into the dining room where some kind of meeting was being held. I think it was about child welfare. A lot of dignified old gentlemen was having dinner and making speeches.
Well, Pepper had him move a couple of tables. He measured a space on the wall and says, that picture's got to come down. Then he starts hammering on the stove, and the Chinese cook like to have a fit. Back into the dining room, and we gets into an argument about what should be moved and what shouldn't during the argument. Pepper holds up his hand near his big snozzle, and that's my cue. I haul off and hit his hand with the palm of my hand, and it looks like I scored a clean knockout. The youth welfare speaker quit his speech making, and them that was eating their desserts all jumped to their feet to see the fight among us partners.
That's a rather rough way of playing, Jerome, breaking up a youth welfare meeting like that.
Well, it wasn't so bad, Frank. About that time, somebody recognizes Pepper and says, them is Cardinal ball players. And do you know what? They took us up to the head table, and instead, we tell them about the ball club and baseball.
And so it all ended happily, eh?
Yes, we was all happy, Frank, until we spied a gentleman sitting over at the end of the head table. A gentleman we didn't know was there.
And who was he, Jerome?
Branch Ricky, Frank. Nobody else.
What'd he say?
Just 2 words, Frank. He says, I'm mortified.
And when Mr. Ricky is mortified...
You said it, Frank. Them cute little caps and them overalls went into the trunks and they didn't come out no more. You know, it's a wise man that knows modified Mr. Ricky too much.
And things were quiet on the old gas house gang for a while.
Yes, I says to Pepper, Johnny, it looks like we can't have no fun no more. You and me might just as well go fishing up to Novus Copus.
But you still had your baseball and what you call your high hard one. And speaking of those youth welfare movements, Jerome, I suppose you frequently were called on to contribute your time and efforts in such programs?
Yes, and you're always glad to have, after you did what you could, Frank. While we was getting Mr. Ricky unmodified after that little Philadelphia incident, he told us he wanted us to visit a certain children's hospital as soon as we get back to St. Louis. And, of course, we said we would.
That meant a lot to those kids, Diz.
Yes, and they asked you to do some pretty difficult things. Like that day at the hospital in St. Louis, me and Pepper asked the kids if there was any little thing we could do for them. We figured maybe they'd wanted love or a ball. But one little feller asked me if I'd really do something for him. All he wanted me to do was strike out Bill Terry that afternoon with the bases loaded.
A rather large order and dangerous, too.
You said it. Why couldn't he have said Johnny Burgess or Huey Kreitz?
Well, how did it come out, Diz?
Well, we got into the 9th inning, a run ahead, and then with 2 outs, somebody gets a pop single and a pop double, and there's men on second and third. That brings up Huey Kreitz. I walks him on 4 pitches, and there's a commotion in the dugout. Frisch wants to know what's the big idea with Bill Terry coming up. But I explained to Frank after Kreitz has walked that I promised them kids at the hospital I'd fan Terry with the bases filled. I get 2 strikes over the corner real quick, and then I walk in and tell Terry what I'm going to do. I said, Bill, I promised a kid at the hospital this morning I'd strike you out with the bases loaded. That's what I walked little Huey for. Bill, I says, this one's going to be a fast one right through the middle. Bill, of course, don't think I'm crazy enough to do a thing like that, so what does he do? He takes that fast one right down the middle for strike 3 call.
Dizzy Dean, that sure is a new approach to the pitching problem. It makes striking a man out just about as easy as cleaning your car with Carnu. And seriously, these days it is getting a lot easier to give your car a clean, polished, sparkling look. One reason is those new streamlined bodies that have become so popular. Those new cars don't have the corners and crevices the old ones had. And the other reason cars are getting easier to clean is Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish. You see, Johnson's Carnu cleans and polishes your car, and it does it in one easy application. One application, and the chrome, the finish, the whole body of your car sparkles like a million. All you do is rub some Carnu on, let it dry to a white powder, and then wipe it off, and the job is done. And here's why it's so easy. There are 5 separate cleaning ingredients in Johnson's Carnu, and they cut right through the film of bugs, tree sap, oil, and tar that cling to the finish of your car, a film that water won't touch. But Carnu is more than a cleaner. It's a wax-fortified polish, too, that leaves your car with a really brilliant luster. Now, when this program is over, why not stop in at your service station or other Johnson dealer and get some Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu? Use it today, And tomorrow, ease down the driveway in a car with a real Sunday shine. Okay, Jerome, now it's time for Coach Dizzy Dean. And what advice have you today for baseball-minded young America?
I hope this will help the boys improve their game, Frank. Last week I suggested that boys do all they could to find some old-time ball player to coach them, to learn them how to play the game right. Well, I realize they all can't do that right away. So here's a suggestion. Go to as many professional ball games as possible. If you live near a big league city, so much the better. But the minor league clubs have good smart managers, too. And when you watch a ball game, pick out the man who plays your own favorite position. If you're a first baseman, watch the first baseman on both clubs. See where they play with nobody on base. See how they shift when a runner is on first. Notice how they shift after their runners on first and second, so the man on first ain't likely to steal. Notice how they shift to take throws. If you're a second baseman or a shortstop, watch your players taking throws. If you're a pitcher, watch how the pitchers stand, how they throw to the bases. Boys, if you'll just keep your eyes open, you can learn a lot from good ball players by watching them do things. Then go out and practice doing it the big league way.
Well, that's sound advice for youngsters and for all of us, Jerome. And now in a less serious vein, how about an anecdote or two, huh?
All right, Frank. How about a story about that great catcher, Jimmy Wilson?
That sounds good, Jerome. Proceed.
This one about Jimmy Wilson shows how smart he was at making other people smart. You know, I thought pretty well of my fastball, Frank, when I could throw it. I didn't like to have anybody suggest that any batter in the whole world could hit my fastball. But every time we'd play Brooklyn, Jimmy Wilson would warn me about these hitters, and one day he says, "Dizzy, don't throw that Cuccinelli a fastball. He'll murder it." I kept arguing that Cuccinelli couldn't hit my fastball. Then one day we got about a 10-run lead on the Dodgers in their own ballpark, and when Cuccinelli come to the plate in about the 7th inning, Jimmy Wilson walks out to the mound. He says, "Diz, you think Cuccinelli can't hit your fastball? Let's try. Just throw that hard one in there and see what happens." Well, I go one past Tony, but the next one, he hit for 4 miles over the left field seats. Boy, I'll bet it's still going.
Well, what did Wilson say to that, Diz?
He didn't say nothing, Frank. I walks in to get a new ball from Bill Clem, the umpire, and I says to Wilson, "Jimmy, I reckon you're right. That ball Cuccinelli hit wasn't no change of pace."
Well, now, Diz, it's time for your baseball fans to be catching what you have to say about the big league picture. So start pitching, Dizzy Dean, the reporter.
Frank, have you a real good friend in the hotel business in Boston?
Well, yes, I think I know Mr. Boniface or two, Jerome, but why do you ask?
Call Ryder War right away, Frank. See if you can get a reservation for about 7 days starting the 5th or 6th of October. That's World Series time. It looks right now as if we'll see the whole show in Boston this year.
An all-Boston World Series, eh, Mr. Dean?
Yes, it looks more and more that way, Frank. The Yankees are 2.5 games behind the Red Sox, and they missed their big chance in the series that closed yesterday. I believe the Red Sox are about in. The Braves are in pretty good position, too. They haven't got the advantage in the loss column that the Red Sox got, but they'll be playing at home, and they're 5 games ahead of Pittsburgh on the win side. That's money in the bank for Billy Southworth. Them games already has been won.
Well, who's going to give the Braves the hotter challenge, according to your crystal ball, Jerome?
Well, Frank, the Pirates are only 1 game behind in the loss column, and I like that Pittsburgh club. Some people are calling the Pirates a team of discards, but I can't see that. Bill Meyer, who is doing a fine job of managing, has a good outfield, a fast infield, and 2 fine catchers. The next Eastern trip will tell the story for Pittsburgh, and it's harder to win on the road than at home.
Yes, that's certainly right, Diz. Now there's one other club I'd like to ask you about. How about Brooklyn?
The Dodgers will be at home entertaining the Western clubs, Frank. They're tough in their own ballpark. But I still like the chances of the Red Sox and the Braves. Better get in touch with that Boston hotel man, Frank.
That I will, Diz. I'll get a wire off to Boston right away. And, folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Carnu cleans when you rub it on, penetrates the sticky road film that water won't touch. Johnson's Carnu polishes when you wipe it off, gives your car a bright, sparkling luster from tail light to front bumper. Carnu is easy to get. Your service station owner and other dealers have it. It's easy to use because, remember, to give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on, wipe it off, is all you do with Johnson's Car New.
And this is Old Diz. Hope all you folks are in the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Car New.
This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish Car New. This program came to you from KSD, St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Again, folks, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Car New, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Oh, listen to the jingles, the rumble and the roar as she travels on the highway and down by the shore. She's mighty tall and handsome, she's known quite well by all. She's a combination on a Wabash cannonball.
Diz. That, folks, was Dizzy Dean in a new role, and this is Frank Eshin to inform you that you have just heard a special arrangement of the Wabash Cannonball by J. Hanner Dean, the Dean of the J.H. Dean Conservatory of Music. Jerome, I didn't know you could.
And maybe I can't, Frank, but I'm especially happy today, and I just busted out with it.
Well, now you can bust right out with your weekly parcel of advice for young ball players, Coach Dean.
That's fine, Frank. You know, I have kind of neglected the pitchers in these here advice departments, but I'm talking to the young pitchers today. Gather around, boys, and listen. Maybe I hope this will help you. I'm dividing the advice into two parts today. Number 1, control, and number 2, learn to pitch with men on bases. Control, I believe everybody will agree, is the most important asset to a pitcher can have. In fact, you just have to have it. And it's the old story of practice, fellas. But the thing to do is to start from the beginning, trying to throw every pitch at a particular target. Even when you warm up before a game, have your catcher hold his glove for a target. Try half a dozen pitches at the low outside corner of the strike zone. Have the catcher hold the glove low and on the outside corner. Then aim half a dozen at the lower inside corner. Then pitch high and inside and then high and outside. Don't just throw to your catcher. Concentrate on every pitch, trying to put it where you want it. You can build a strike zone if you want to. Make a little window, as wide as the plate and extended from the knees to the shoulders. Rig that up on a platform, maybe held in place by a rope. Then see how many pitches you can throw through that window. If you go through that trouble, I believe you'll get a big kick out of the fun you'll have throwing at the strike zone window. And now we come to number 2 again. Learn to pitch with men on base. You see, when there's nobody on base, you take your full wind-up. With a man on base, you got to pitch from a stretch. Many a pitcher who breaks into the big leagues does all right until somebody gets on base. Then when it can't take his wind-up no more, he loses some of his stuff, especially speed. It's a matter of practice again. It's a little harder to get all your power into your pitching when you can't take a wind-up. So you'll need a little more practice throwing that way.
Well, can you throw about as hard from the stretch as with a full wind-up, Diz?
Yes, just about, Frank. Although I believe our old friend psychology figures in that. When a pitcher goes through one of them long, fancy pump-handle wind-ups, it kind of scares the hitter a little and makes it look like you're throwing harder than you really are. Of course, there comes a time when you can't throw as hard as you used to. I remember when I was with the Cubs, and old Gabby Hartnett come running out to the mound and says, Diz, now try to throw this one a little harder. And I says, Gabby, I'm throwing twice as hard as I ever thrown in my life. And Gabby looks at me kind of funny, and I says, Gabby, the only trouble is that I throw hard enough, but I can't throw fast enough no more.
But, Diz, with everything even, that is, with two men with equal strength, the form, the rhythm does make a difference.
Just like in golf, Frank, Ben Hogan ain't very big, but how he can send them a mile down the fairway.
Well, this little discussion leads right into an item from the mailbag, Jerome.
Okay, let's have it.
James Stewart of Boston wants to know if you've formed any definite opinion about who deserves the Rookie of the Year honors for 1948.
Yes, I've been watching a lot of good-looking young ball players this season, Frank, and I'll give Mr. Stewart a couple of candidates in each league. That ought to be definitely enough. In the National League, I'll name Alvin Dark of the Boston Braves and Richie Asburn of the Phillies. Dark has made a big difference in the Braves. He's tightened that infield defense. He's helped turn double plays, and he's helped with his hitting. Asburn probably would be a cinch for that honor if he'd come up with the Braves or the Cardinals. But it hurts a fellow to be with a club that ain't in the pennant race. But that Asburn has been a great little outfielder all year. He started by crowding Harry Walker to the bench, and he's up with the leaders at hitting.
Well, Diz, now about the American League's outstanding rookies.
They're pitchers, Frank. One is Lou Bresci of the Athletics, and the other is Gene Bearden of the Cleveland Indians. And it's been such a close race between the two that the pennant races may decide it. But I don't see anybody in the American League close to Bearden and Bresci.
Well, Diz, there's another thing that nothing is close to.
I reckon you're wanting to talk about that pet subject of yours.
You mean the best way to make a car shine like new?
That's what I mean, Frank. By the way, did you ever have to rub down a horse, soap the harness, and shine the buggy? Now, that there was real work.
Well, now, cleaning and polishing a car was real work, too, until they invented Johnson's Carnu.
Uh-huh. But there ain't no horsehair tail on that car that you got to pull burrs out of.
Well, that's right, Diz. But there is road film on a car finish. Road film made up of exhaust fumes, tree sap, road oil, all kinds of things. And no amount of water will take it off. Now, Carnu not only cuts through that road film so that you can get your car beautifully clean, Carnu also polishes your car till it shines like a blue ribbon trotter. Yes, man, right there you've got the important point about Johnson's Carnu. It contains 5 cleaning ingredients plus wax, and so it cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Just rub it on, let it dry to a white powder, then wipe it off. Your car's as clean as a tabletop and bright and shiny as a mirror.
That's the kind of a car I like to roll down the main drag in, Frank.
That's the kind of car we all like, and we all get with Johnson's Carnu. So, men, if you want to give your car a Sunday shine, if you want to do it in one easy application, ask at your service station or other dealer for Johnson's Carnu. That's C-A-R-N-U, Carnu. And here's another letter before we finish with the mailbag department. Mr. Ralph Adams of Pasadena, California, wants you to name Dizzy Dean's all-star big league team. That is, the best players in each position that you've played against or seen during your years as player and observer of big league baseball.
I'll be glad to accommodate, Mr. Adams. Mind you, I don't say these are the greatest ever. Just the best I've ever seen in action. I'll start with the infield. Lou Gehrig is my first baseman. I don't think there'll be any argument there. And at second base, which wasn't so easy, I'll take old Frankie Frisch. Frank could win a game for you all by himself. He'd beat out an infield hit, steal second and third if he had to. Then he'd score on an infield out. A great man on bases, a good switch hitter, and a great defensive man. I know there'll be a lot of votes for Roger Hornsby, but I'll take Frisch because there wasn't anything Frankie couldn't do. Playing next to Frankie on my team is Lou Boudreau. He's shown me a lot of shortstop this season and the last few seasons. He's been right up there near the top in hitting all year. And all the time he's been managing the Cleveland Indians. I really don't think there ought to be no argument about Boudreau at shortstop. At third base, I guess we'll all vote together. Pie Traynor. Now there was a third baseman. Tall, able to grab those high line drives. Traynor was a great defensive man. You couldn't get anything through him. And he had a great arm. How do you like my infield, Frank?
Well, sounds like a great help to the pitcher, Diz. I don't think many would filter through that defensive line. Now, how about your outfield?
I know I'm going to hear a lot of squawks on this department, Frank. Maybe we ought to drop the whole thing.
Oh, no, Diz. Let's be brave about this. Let's have your outfield.
All right. Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, and Stan Musial. I know the first question will be, how about Ty Cobb? Well, I didn't see Ty Cobb, and I didn't see Tris Speaker. But I have seen Joe DiMaggio and Stan Musial. And Babe Ruth just couldn't be left off of nobody's ball club.
Well, that's not a bad outfield, Dizzy. Now, how about your catchers?
I'm going to pick 2, Frank. With either one, I wouldn't need anybody else. But I'm picking Gabby Hartnett and Jimmy Wilson, the 2 greatest catchers I've ever seen behind the plate. And I've pitched to them both.
Now we have everything but a pitching staff, Jerome.
Carl Hubbell and Lefty Grove, Frank. Hubbell was one of the greatest I ever seen anywhere. He had the greatest butterfly curve ever pitched. and Grove was tops in the American League as far as I could see.
Say, but you've named only left-handers, Jerome. How about a good right-hander now?
I just can't seem to think of any good right-hander, Frank.
Well, I tell you what, I'll think for you, Dizzy. How about Jerome Herman Dean? Do you think you could stand to have him on your team?
Well, I always did, Frank.
Now, Dizzy Dean, how about you becoming the storyteller? Huh?
I got a couple about umpires, Frank. Baseball fans seem to be interested in what goes on down on the ball field. Things that occasionally cause rows between umpires and players.
Sounds interesting. Go on.
And, of course, when you think of umpires and their rows, Frank, you think right quick of Frankie Frisch. He had many a row with the boys in blue. There was a time in Boston. We was playing the Braves, and it did seem that a lot of close plays was going against us. But Frank was in pretty good humor that day, and he wasn't raising no fuss. Then all of a sudden, Larry gets red in the face and chases Frank off the field. Nobody could figure what had happened.
But I'm sure Frisch regaled you with the details as he hid in the back of that dugout.
He sure did. Getz was calling them at first base while Frank was coaching over at third. Well, after the third or fourth close one called against us, Frank walks past Getz on the way to our dugout. He stops and says, "Getz, it's a nice day, isn't it, Lawrence?" And Getz says, "Yes, Frank, a beautiful day." And Frank says, "By the way, Lawrence, have you a couple of cigars in your pocket?" And Getz says, "No, Frank, why would you think I'd have cigars in my pocket?" And Frisch says, "Because, Lawrence, you look so much like a cigar store Indian."
And Frisch got bounced just for that?
He sure did. Getz didn't waste no time. That Frisch knew more ways of getting the umps mad. One day in Brooklyn, it was getting dark, and Frank thought the game ought to be called. You see, we was a run ahead. Anyhow, our pitcher got into a little trouble, and Frank sent the groundkeeper after a flashlight and started down to the bullpen, flashing the light so he could find his way.
Well, did Frank get bounced for that one?
Yes, George Major Kirk showed Frank the way to the clubhouse that time. And another time, when Frank thought the game ought to be called on account of rain, he got a big wagon umbrella and walked back and forth in front of the dugout, and he got bounced again.
And yet, Diz, they tell me Frisch and the umpires are the very best of friends.
They are, Frank. You see, Frisch never gets vicious. It's all good, clean fun, and the umpires have to laugh, too. But, of course, them umpires got dignity, and they got to protect that.
Yes, and they have a job to do.
That's right, Frank. Just like everybody else in baseball. Like the day we was playing the Phillies at the old Baker Bowl, late in September. The Phillies was down in last place, and we got off to an early lead. It wasn't much of a ball game, and the small crowd kept getting smaller and smaller. But we noticed one crowd of people down the right field stands, and they stayed inning after inning. Not one of them left the ballpark. Finally, we got curious, and I says, "I'm going to the bullpen to warm up a little, and I'm going to find out what them people is staying to the finish of this ball game." So I go to the bullpen in the right field corner of the park, and when I passed the group that was sticking to the finish, I asked how come that they should stay so faithfully with us leading the Phillies 17-2. But they told me, "Dizzy," they said, "we know this is a pretty bad ball game, and we'd like to go home like everybody else is doing, but we can't. You see, we're the ground crew."
Well, now, Diz, before your last job on this series of programs for Johnson's Carnu...
Doggone, that's right. This is my last program for Carnar this summer.
And we should say thank you for listening.
And thanks for all them letters.
And we hope we'll be back again for Carnu next summer.
Stop, Frank, or you'll have me crying. I don't like to say goodbye.
Neither do I, Diz, so before we sign off for the summer, let's have Dizzy Dean, the reporter, give us the picture as you see it on the pennant races as they go into that final stretch.
Well, Frank, one of the races is about over. The Braves have a comfortable lead, and Billy Southworth has put the job of protecting that lead into the hands of his two pitching stars. That's a smart move. Johnny Sain and Warren Spahn can do a little extra work till that flag is cinched and then have time to rest before the World Series.
All right, and how about the American League, Diz?
That may go right down to the wire, Frank, but the Yankees are within easy striking distance. There may be some World Series games at Yankee Stadium in October. Watch them, Frank. If those Yankees ever get ahead, the Red Sox won't catch them again.
Ah, those are words of wisdom, Jerome, words of wisdom indeed. Now, friends, before closing, just a brief rundown of Dizzy Dean's all-star team pick today. First base, Lou Gehrig. Second, Frankie Frisch. Shortstop, Lou Boudreau. Third base, Pie Traynor. In the outfield, Stan Musial, Joe DiMaggio, and Babe Ruth. The catchers, Gabby Hartnett and Jimmy Wilson. and the pitchers, Carl Hubble, Lefty Grove, and, of course, the one and only Dizzy Dean. He's been brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, a wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Rub it on and wipe it off. That's all there is to it. Rub it on and Carnu cleans your car, loosens up that sticky, stubborn road film that water won't touch. Wipe it off and Carnu polishes your car. Ask for Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu today. You'll save your arms, you'll save your time, while you're making your car sparkle like new. Because remember, to give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on and wipe it off is all you do with Carnu.
This is old Diaz saying goodbye for now. I've had a lot of fun pitching lacrosse for Johnson's Carnu.
This is Frank Eshin saying the same thing for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnu. This program came to you from KSD St. Louis. This is NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnu, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
My goodness, Frank, do you mean I'm going to be on NBC every Saturday afternoon to talk about baseball?
That's right, Diz. And I'm going to tell the folks about Johnson's Carnu, the auto polish that
Well,
really...
Let's get going, boy. I'll tell you a story that I'll never will forget about Charlie Grimm.
Well, now, just a minute, Diz.
You ever hear the one about Frankie Frisch? I'd like to tell that story.
Just a second
Well,
now.
let me tell that one about Lefty Gomez of the New York Yankees.
Well, okay, go ahead. You've got me. Go on.
Well, Frank, Lefty Gomez was pitching a ball game against Bobby Feller in 1936, and in the seventh inning, the Yankees was leading 2-1. They had 65,000 people in the grandstands. And the Yankees, naturally being out in front, they start stalling for time, trying to get it to get darker, and they could win the ball game 2-1. And Summers behind the plate, the umpire says, "Come on, let's play ball. I'll call the game when I think it's too dark." So Gomez, being the next batter, he reached over to Joe McCarthy, and says, the manager of the Yankees, and says, "Give me a match. I'll fix that umpire." So he took a match and a bat and walked up to the plate. And he struck the match as he walked into the batter's box, and boy, I mean, the umpire Summers really liked to blew his top. He stepped out from out of the plate, and he says, "Lefty," he says, "don't show me up in front of all these 65,000 people." He says, "You can see that ball," and he says, "I can see it." He said, "Don't try to stall like that." Gomez stepped out of the batter's box, and he says, "Mr. Summers," he says, "I tell you, I can see the ball all right," he said, "but I want to be doggone sure a feller can see me."
Okay, Diz, that's well, but...
I'd like to tell one more.
Well, now, just a minute. Hold it, if you will, please. We've got to go through a little warm-up on this first program before you start pitching him so fast. Folks, this is Frank Eshin. I want to tell you a little more about this program, what you can expect each Saturday. You see, I've known Dizzy Dean for years. I've seen him pitch some of his great games. I've worked with him here in St. Louis, where he made his name with the great St. Louis Cardinals. Every Saturday afternoon, Dizzy Dean will bring back to life Immortals of the Diamond in his anecdotes of his baseball career. He'll answer questions from the mailbag, telling of colorful incidents in baseball in which he has played such a rich part. He'll have advice for the young Americans who want to become big leaguers, and Dizzy really knows what it takes to make the big league grade. Boys who play in church leagues, municipal leagues, or small-town sandlots will be interested deeply in counsel from the colorful Dizzy Dean. Dizzy will take the two leagues apart and put them back together again in his inimitable way as the pennant races progress. There'll be hot-off-the-wire news. There'll be stories about the heroes who are making the baseball news. And by the way, Diz, do you think you'll have any trouble talking 15 minutes every Saturday?
Frank, if somebody don't stop me, I'll be talking an hour and 15 minutes. You know, Frank, I'm something of a veteran in this here broadcasting business.
Almost a 10-year man, eh?
That's right, Frank. I've done the Cardinals and Browns, and right now I'm broadcasting play-by-play on the Brownies in St. Louis. And, brother, am I glad they've changed the rules since I started this broadcasting business.
Well, what do you mean, Diz, change the rules?
Well, maybe, Frank, I should say I'm glad there ain't no wartime rules to worry about no more. You know, when the war was on, I was a little new on the job, and the rules was strict. There was a game in St. Louis, and rain began to fall during the game. And you know how it was during the war. You couldn't say nothing about the weather in St. Louis, for fear it might change the military situation at Ashen or Iwo Jima.
Go ahead, that's all right.
But there was a long interruption this day, and my partner, Johnny O'Hara, finally got tired of talking and says, "Diz, here's the mic. It's all yours." Well, I talked along as I could about what a close game it was and how maybe play would be resumed pretty soon. And then finally I says, folks, I can't tell you why this game's been held up, but if you just stick your head out the window, you can soon find out.
Diz, you always did have a reputation for getting yourself out of a tight spot. Right now, I'm going to put you on the spot.
What's next, Frank?
Well, we've got the mailbag. You know, when folks heard that you were going to do this program for Johnson's Car New, the mail started pouring in, and that gave us an idea. Every week, we're going to answer some of those letters from the mailbag, and here's your first request. Al Brennan of Chicago wants to know what game you look on as the biggest in your whole baseball career.
Well, Frank, I certainly appreciate that letter, and there's a lot of games I can look upon as big games. I got a lot of thrills in the game of baseball, but the greatest thrill I ever got was in 1934 against the Detroit Tigers. We won the pennant that year for the Cardinals and went into the series the underdog to defeat the Tigers. Well, they had fellows like Geringer Greenberg on the ball club, and when we got through with them, you know what I call them, the Pussycats, not the Tigers. And I think that was the greatest thrill I ever got due to the fact it was the seventh and final game of the series to see who was going to be the champions of the world. And I was fortunate enough to pitch that ball game and beat Detroit 11-0, winning the championship. Then the saddest game I believe I ever lost and the toughest game I ever lost, Frank, was about 3 or 4 years later. I hurt my arm in between 34 and 38, and I was sold to the Chicago Cubs for $185,000 and 4 ball players, and with my sore arm. I was just thinking, if I'd had a good arm, wonder what I'd have brought.
No telling, Diz, no telling.
Well, anyway, I was over there, and we won the pennant that year, and I was pitching the second game against the New York Yankees. And in the 8th inning, I had them beat 3-2. And Crossetti came up the plate and hit a 3-2 pitch into the left field seats for a home run and beat me 4-3. Well, I didn't have a thing on the ball. And it was a lot of difference throwing that nothing ball up there in 38 and it was that far ball in 34. And I was taken out of the ball game, and Gabby Hartnett was our manager that year. And I went over to the dugout, and I really felt sad, Frank. And the fans in the Chicago ballpark, something like 45,000 people, stood up and cheered as I left the mound. And when I started going to the dugout, you could hear the pin drop. I finally went into the clubhouse. And the fellow I saw up there first was a grand old man of baseball, Connie Mack. He put his arms around my shoulder, and I sort of felt a little better. He says, son, he says, you pitched a great ball game out there with what you had on the ball. He says, at one game I'd like to see you won, although it was against our American League club.
Diz, everybody was pulling for you in that game. Well, in between those great games, you had the reputation of being something of a problem child. I know, for example, that you gave Frankie Frisch some very anxious moments.
Oh, I guess me and Paul was famous for that, all right. Speaking of Frankie Frisch, reminds me of that time when he was giving us pitchers a few instructions in the clubhouse before a game in Brooklyn. In fact, it was a doubleheader in Brooklyn, Frank. And Frankie was one of the greatest second basemen in the game, you know. Well, he was talking there telling me how to pitch to Tony Cuccinelli and Lannis Fry and Sam Leslie and Ralph Ball and all the other Dodgers. And I gave him an argument on every one. Finally, I said, let's stop this silly business, Frank. Don't you think it's kind of silly for ordinary second baseman like you to be telling a great pitcher like me how to pitch to anybody? Well, Frank almost had a stroke. He told us to go out and pitch the way we wanted. He didn't care if we did get our ears pinned back. And the rest of the story is that I pitched a 3-hitter that afternoon. Nobody gets a hit off me till the 8th inning with 1 or 2 out, and then my brother Paul goes out and pitches a no-hitter.
That was in that second game, and that was a lot of pitching that day, Diz.
Yes, Frank, that story makes me think it's about time for me to give a little advice to them high school and sandlot pitchers all over the country. Ain't it, Frank?
Well, before you do that, it's my turn, Diz. I have a little advice to give. Here it is, Saturday afternoon. Tomorrow's the 4th of July. And the most sensible thing a man can do before the sun goes down is to give that car of his a Sunday shine with Johnson's Car New, so that his car will be a sparkler instead of a dud in the 4th of July parade. There's just no sense in anybody driving around on any Sunday in a car that's dull and shabby, as long as you can keep your car shiny and new-looking with one easy application of Car New. Just rub it on and wipe it off. Car New takes off all road grime, bugs, oil, tar, tree sap, everything water won't touch. Car New is wax fortified. It puts a showroom shine on chrome and body that'll make your family or your girlfriend proud to take that Sunday ride with you. So give your car a Sunday shine with Johnson's Car New. Rub it on, wipe it off. It cleans and polishes in one easy application. How about that, Mr. Dean?
Frank, you certainly said a mouthful, brother.
And speaking of mouthfuls, you're going to have to unload a mouthful of advice to young pitchers.
Okay, Frank. Boys, this part of our program is especially for the boys. But I want fathers and big brothers to listen, too. It's a little advice to boys who want to be pitchers and who hope someday to reach the major leagues. The reason I want the fathers and brothers to listen is so they can help the boys pitcher remember what I'm telling them. You know, when I was a boy, Frank, I didn't have the chances that the young boys today have gotten. And when I broke in to baseball, we didn't have a lot of baseball parks all over the country. We didn't have I didn't have big league pitchers and players to tell me what to do and how to take care of myself. And I just like to say to the young boys that's breaking in today is don't throw too much. In other words, don't pitch too much. Do a lot of running, keep your legs in shape, and always get 3 to 4 days rest. In other words, just rest after you pitch a ball game and then do a lot of running in the outfield.
Well, some of those star kid pitchers like to pitch every day, and that's bad, isn't it?
Yes, a lot of young pitchers, it's a star on a ball club. The other boys come around and pat him on the back and says, Johnny, you've got to pitch for us tomorrow. After pitching today, you've got to pitch the next day. They want their best pitcher to pitch because them kids all left to win, which is a very, very good thing. And another thing for the young pitchers is to never throw curves. Now, I'm talking about boys from 9 to 15 years old. Don't start throwing curves that young because the curve balls will come later, and it's not hard to throw a curve ball when your arm is strong and it's developed. Or just take the ball and throw nothing strictly but fastballs and work on control. And as I said a minute ago, the curves will come when you develop ready for the big leagues. And the third is warming up properly. When you're out there on the mound starting a ball game, you must have 15 minutes of warming up before starting. You walk out there and start lobbing the ball to the catcher easily, gradually increasing the speed of the throw as the 15 minutes goes by. And then the last 3 or 4 pitches, you must rear back and throw the ball, and you know you're in shape then, you're loosened up, and then you can go out and pitch your regular turn, and that way you'll never hurt yourself.
Well, Diz, in order to sum up for these young pitchers, suppose we do it this way. Number 1, don't pitch too often. Get plenty of rest between games. Don't start throwing those curves too soon. And in the third place, warm up properly before you pitch any game. And next week, you'll have some fine advice for young catchers. Right now, Diz, what does the big league show look like to you today?
Well, Frank, I've been asked that question all over the country in the last couple of months. And right now, I want to say that at the moment, Bob Lemon of the Cleveland Indians, who pitched a no-hitter Wednesday night, is the hottest thing in the American League. In fact, in either league. But I want to say don't get discouraged because you ain't having no luck. Bob Lemon started out as a third baseman. He fumbled grounders and couldn't hit. They tried him in the outfield, but they were scared he'd get hit on the head. That was just 2 years ago. And now Bob Lemon is top man on the pitching staff that includes none other than Bobby Fowler himself. Them Indians in athletics is hanging on to the top spot in the American League right now. But watch the Yankees and Red Sox. They're moving up, folks. And I figure they'll be fighting for first place after it gets good and hot. But what a year. Who ever figured the Athletics on the 3rd of July would have won more than any other club in the league? They won 42 ball games, more than any other club in either league. The dogfight goes on in the National League, too, with the Pirates, the surprise ball club so far. And a lot of people asking about managers. Well, Billy Southworth is the manager of the year right now. He's rebuilt that second base combination around second and short. And the club's getting double plays now, and, brother, how a pitcher loves to see them things. They really take you out of trouble. I hate to see little Joe Garagiola leave the Cardinals, too. He's been sent to Columbus. But that's what happens when a boy brought up too young. Don't try to get into the majors till you're ready.
Well, that's fine, Diz, and more of that big league picture next week. Right now, there is just one more thing I have to take up with you. Your old friends, the Missouri school teachers, are after you again.
Happy to have them in the audience, Frank.
Yes, but one of them has written you a very sharp note.
Well, what does she say, Frank?
Says she's been listening to you this summer, and she thinks you haven't changed a bit.
What does she mean I haven't changed?
Well, she says you still say ain't. How about that?
Well, Frank, all I can say is that is what my old friend Will Rogers told me one time. He said a lot of folks don't say ain't eating. So I'm going to keep on saying ain't and keep on eating, brother.
And we hope, ladies and gentlemen, that you will keep on listening to Dizzy Dean each Saturday at this same time, brought to you by Johnson's Car New, the auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Just rub it on, wipe it off. When you rub it on, Johnson's Car New takes off road grime, bugs, oil, tree sap, everything water won't touch. When you wipe it off, wax-fortified Car New gives your car that Sunday shine.
This is Old Diz, hoping all you folks are in the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching him across again for Johnson's Car New.
This is Frank Ashen saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's Wax Fortified Auto Polish Car New. Well, here he is, folks, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Car New, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Say, Frank, if they sold out yet, the way people are talking to me, I figure there wouldn't be no Car New left by this time.
Well, Diz, you know Rome wasn't built in a day.
I didn't say anything or nothing about Rome, Frank. What league are they in? I'm talking about Car New and baseball.
Yes, Diz, and very especially about baseball. I'm to do the talking about Car New.
Well, Frank, you let me tell one about Lefty Gomez last week, and I got another Gomez story. Only this is about a different Gomez. It's Jose Gomez this time.
Okay, Diz. This is Frank Ashen, folks, who knows that when Dizzy Dean must tell a story, he must. Go right ahead, Diz.
Well, Frank, this is about a young infielder named Jose Gomez. He was a second baseman with the Phillies, and he never could remember how many was out. He had a friend up in the stands. You remember old Baker Bowl in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
And this friend would lean out and yell, "1 out, Joe," or "2 out, Joe," or "There ain't nobody out, Joe." And it helped little Jose a lot. But one day the Phillies is playing in Cincinnati, and Jose don't have his friend there to tell him how many were out and how many was on, or one thing and another. Well, along in the 7th inning, the Reds has men on first and second, and only 1 out. Babe Herman was the man on second. Well, the batter hits a grounder to the shortstop, and the shortstop tosses it to Jose at second. But instead of throwing to first for a double play, Jose thinks there's already 2 out and just rolls the ball toward the mound, like a man does when an inning is over. Well, Babe Herman sees the ball, fires the ball to Jimmy Wilson at the plate. Babe Herman slides, but Wilson gets the ball in time, and Herman is out by a eyelash. Babe, lying there in the dirt at the plate, looks up at Wilson, and he says, "Jimmy, what kind of a trick play is that?" And Wilson cracks back. "Babe, we tried that play 6 times, and you're the first guy to fall for it."
Well, there you are, folks. That's a sample of what you can continue to expect from Dizzy Dean. You'll have a story or two about the great and the near great of the diamond. He'll have some advice each Saturday at this time for young Americans who want to be baseball players. He'll do a little prognosticating, in his own words, of course, and he'll treat the pennant races as they progress, and he'll answer your letters. And right now, Dizzy, it's mailbag time.
How is that postman, Frank? Every time I see him coming in, he's got a couple of sacks over his back. Is all that mail for me?
Well, part of it, Diz. And here's one in particular that we've picked out. It's from John H. Ryerson of West Palm Beach, Florida. He heard you talking last week about your sore arm, and he wants to know how you got it. Mr. Ryerson remembers you as old man Rhythm himself out there on that pitching mound, and he wonders how such a smooth article could become sore. Can you tell just how it happened, Diz?
Yes, Frank, and I believe that that may be a sort of a lesson for young pitchers. I got my sore arm by being hit on the foot by a line drive.
Now, wait just a minute, Dizzy Dean. I've heard of powerful line drives before, but I'd never heard of one that was so hot it could hit a man on the foot and give him a sore arm.
Well, Frank, old boy, you're going to hear about that kind of a line drive right now. I guess I did have pretty good rhythm out there, as Mr. Ryerson says. I know it was easy for me to pitch. I didn't get tired, and I certainly never dreamt that old Diz someday would pull up with a sore wing. And I believe that is important as all get out, to have rhythm. Well, I was picked on the National League All-Star squad in 1937, and Bill Terry started me against the American League team. I got along without much trouble until the two were out in the third. Then DiMaggio sang and Lou Gehrig hit one a country mile over the right field wall. Lou, a great character if there ever was one, guessed right on that one, brother. He guessed I'd throw him a fastball with a count 3-2, and I sure did. Earl Ewell was the next batter. Boy, I'll never forget him. He hit one back at me like a mile, and a squirrel got in and it picks me right on the left foot. I grabbed the ball and throws Ewell out at first. But, boy, that line drive sure was Mr. Trouble. They tried to keep me from knowing after they took x-rays that I had a broken toe. They weren't fooling me none. We were having our troubles that summer, and we couldn't afford to have a pitcher out there with a sore toe so after a while I'm giving a ticket and told to report to Manager Frisch at Boston. Mind you, my toe was still taped up, and I had to wear a shoe with the front out of it. But when Frisch asked me if I was ready to pitch, I said, what do you think I come up here for? To play pinochle? The next day I pitched, and that's when the line drive that hit me on the foot gives me a sore arm. I couldn't stride right with that sore foot. I pitched off balance. I guess you'd call it that, Frank. And my arm ain't never been the same since. My advice to young pitchers and old ones, too, for that matter, is don't try to pitch a ball if you've got a broken toe or a sprained ankle or anything that keeps you from striding natural when you pitch. If you do, you'll get a sore arm like old Diz did. And, brother, you'll never quit regretting it.
And here's some advice for automobile owners, Diz. If they take this advice, they'll never regret it.
Give 'em that high hard one, Frank.
Well, if there's a man who doesn't prefer, especially on Sunday, to drive a clean, polished, sweet-looking car, I haven't met him. We all like to open a car door that sparkles like new, to look along a hood that gleams in the light. But the trouble is, Diz, cleaning and polishing a car in the ordinary way is quite a job. Unless, of course, you've latched onto some Carnu. That's Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. Say, there's an auto polish that makes cleaning easy. And that's because Carnu contains special ingredients that zip through the greasy road film that water won't touch. Besides, Carnu is fortified with wax, and so it polishes your car. Does both jobs, cleaning and polishing, at the same time. You just apply Johnson's Carnu, let it dry to a white powder, wipe it off. That's all there is to it. And what was a tough job is a quick, easy job with Carnu. And then you step back and look at your car. It'll shine like new from radiator to rear fender tip. Cleaning has been a snap. And when you ease away from the curb, you know your car looks like a million. And so to give your car that Sunday shine, ask for Johnson's Carnu. That's C-A-R-N-U.
Golly, Frank, I wished I could spell like that.
Oh, don't worry about that, Diz, just because you don't have that idiosyncrasy.
No, I guess I can't throw that one no more, Frank, since I had that sore arm.
Okay, Diz. And now, Dizzy Dean, the reporter. Diz, how does that Major League picture look to you today?
I can't see nothing right now except the All-Star game, Frank. Baseball people are pouring into St. Louis for the big game of the mid-season Tuesday afternoon.
Well, do you know who's going to win this one?
I'll just tell you this, Frank. There's been 14 All-Star games, and if you look up the record, you'll find that long ball hitters won 7 of them. Babe Ruth won the 1933 game with a home run. Jimmy Fox hit one out of the park in 1935 to win that game. Max West hit a 3-run homer in 1940 in the National League, won that one. In 1941, it was Ted Williams, and in 1942, it was Boudreau and York. Bobby Doerr cleared the wall in 1943, a 3-run homer. And in the 1946, it was Williams again, leading a home run attack that beat the Nationals 12-0.
Say, Diz, you've mentioned a lot of American League names there.
Yes, Frank, but I believe the National League's got more home run hitters this time. Mize, Walt Cooper, Kiner, Pafko, and Stan Musial.
Well, then you're picking the National League to win, huh?
Well, let's put it this way, Frank. The team that does the best pitching against the home run hitters will win this one. If the National League can stop Ted Williams, I believe they got a good chance.
Say, Diz, another thing I'd like to know. How do you account for 4 third basemen on that National League club?
Well, Frank, that's a good question. The fans of all over the country voted Andy Pafko of the Chicago Cubs as their starting third baseman. And he will start and play 3 innings due to the fans voting him that. Now, the managers have the rights to pick the other players to fill out the 25-man squad on each club. And manager Leo DeRocher has picked 3 infielders, and all of them are third basemen, due to the fact that they are all power hitters. In other words, he got those infielders because they can hit the ball harder and further than the other infielders that was playing second, short, and first. And he probably got these 3 other third basemen for one other reason, too, because, you know, those American League hitters can pull that ball and hit them hard down at third baseline. So with Pafko starting, he said, well, I got 3 more men to follow him if Pafko gets hurt.
They really whistle down there, don't they?
They certainly do, Frank.
Well, Diz, it should be a great game right here in St. Louis next Tuesday. And now, Dizzy Dean, the coach. Diz, you remember you promised last week to have something to say to ambitious young ball players who wanted to become catchers. What is your considered advice on how to do that?
Well, Frank, you know, the major leagues are in very badly need of great catchers. Some of the great catchers have gone on, and they haven't been picked up and brought back into the major leagues in a long time. And I want to say that it's easier for a big league catcher, a young kid, to break into big league as a catcher than any other position on the ball field. Now, a lot of young kids get the idea that they've got to be able to do everything. Well, it's wonderful that you can do everything, but all catchers and all great catchers don't do everything. Now, you don't have to be fast as long as you have a good arm and can throw that ball accurately and hit. That's the main thing. And know how to play hitters and can throw that ball to first base trying to pick a runner off, at second base accurately, at third base. Why, that's a great assess to start with. And to do that, you must practice. If I was a young catcher starting out today, I'd try to get me an old catcher to try to give me a few pointers. And in doing those things, why, it's easier for you to become a big league catcher. Now, there's a lot of important things about catching. And for instance, if a young boy is breaking in behind the plate or practicing on the sidelines, he definitely should have his mask, breast protector, and shin guards on, because he's going to have those on in the ball game, and it's a lot of difference throwing a ball with that outfit on than it is without them. So always work with that outfit on. And another thing is to work a lot on pop flies, because you know that you've seen a lot of pop flies go in the air, and if you haven't had the practice and worked on catching those pop flies, why, it costs you a lot of ball games. That's a very, very important thing. Then another thing is on those pop flies, a catcher should always throw that mask off and throw it far enough away from him where he will never stumble into that mask going after the ball. Now, here's another thing. Just like Hank Gowdy in 1924 was catching for the New York Giants, against the Washington Senators in the World Series.
I remember that game.
And it was the 7th and deciding game of that series, and it was the 9th inning, and a pop foul went up behind the plate, and Gowdy took the mask off, dropped it in front of him, and as he turned around, he stumbled into the mask and couldn't get to the ball for the catch, and it cost the Giants the series that year. So, you young catchers always wanting to break into baseball, remember those things. Be in a position to throw at all times, shift yourself from right to left, and you'll never have much trouble. After all, it's a lot of fun catching, almost as much fun as fogging that high one through the plate like I used to do, Frank.
Yes, you sure did have your share of fun in your day, Diz. And speaking of fun, I think we have time for one of your yarns. What is Dizzy Dean, the storyteller, to tell us today?
Well, it's one I always like, Frank, and maybe you'll like it, too. It's about the Washington Ball Club and rookie pitcher. My old friend Dutch Leonard told this one to me. It seems that the older pitchers on the staff had been kidding the rookie every chance they had. And one afternoon, the young pitcher is warming up in the bullpen during a rally by the New York Yankees. But the rally is stopped, and the manager says, "Boys, sit down in the bullpen." Well, they quit warming up, and you know, as a lot of people know, that ball players cannot eat on the field or in the dugout or in the bullpen. Well, in the bullpen, but when the rookie sits down, one of the older pitchers tells him that it's all right now, he can go and get him a hot dog. Well, he goes and buys him a hot dog, so the rookie gets a lot of mustard in it. In other words, that dog was full of mustard, and he's just about to bite into it when the Yankees put on another rally. And Clyde Mallon, the coach, comes running out of the bullpen to tell the rookie he's going to have to go in. So the rookie looks at the hot dog and says, Mallon, what's the setup? And Mallon says, the bases are full. The rookie says, who's coming up? And the rookie really wants to know who are coming up there, who the hitters are, in other words. Mallon says, well, King Kong Keller, Joe DiMaggio, and Bill Dickey. So the rookie says to Mallon, here, brother, hold my hot dog. I'll be right back.
And, folks, we hope you'll all be right back with us at this time next Saturday to listen to Dizzy Dean. This is Frank Eshen saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish Carnew. Well, here he is again, folks, Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnew, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Say, Frank, I wish you'd explain something to me. What does that wax fortified mean exactly?
Well, I'm glad you're curious, Dizzy. And this is Frank Eshen, happy to satisfy Dizzy Dean's curiosity. It means the polish is fortified or made more effective, Diz, by the wax that is one of the ingredients.
And that means fortified, Frank.
Yes, Dizzy. And here perhaps is a better way to explain it to you. You remember when you were a youngster, you probably could throw pretty hard. You probably were a good pitcher right from the start with that strong arm.
Yes, Frank, it was some arm. But don't worry, I'm not going to tell you that I knocked squirrels out of trees left-handed so I wouldn't bruise them up too much.
Thanks for passing that one, Jerome. But we were having a lesson on the word fortified. Well, even with that strong arm, you became a better pitcher when you learned to throw a curve. In other words, the acquisition of a curve fortified you as a pitcher. Fortified, see, Jerome?
Now I know what you mean, Frank. I like to learn them things, but I was pretty well fortified, Frank, with that just fastball. If anybody should drive up in a nice, slick, shiny car and ask you.
Then you really were fast, Diz, huh?
I'll say I was fast. Boy, I wish I could throw that hard one now. I'll never forget a game back in them good old days. This story will give you an idea of how fast a man can be, Frank.
An anecdote, I dare say?
Right you are, Frank. We was playing the Phillies in late-season doubleheader, and along about the 8th inning of the second game, it was a cinch the umpires would call the game. Bruzy Ogrodowski was my catcher, and he kept telling me he couldn't see the ball any too good himself, and he didn't figure the batters could see it either. Well, we had a one-run lead, but with 2 out, the Phillies get a couple of bloopers, and Dick Bartell comes to the plate. He was a tricky hitter, a guy with a lot of courage, and he was swinging from his heels up there. I got a couple of strikes on him, though, and then Ogie comes running out to the mound and says, I got an idea, Dizzy. I'll keep this here ball after just pretending to give it to you. Then you rear back and go through your pitching motion, and I'll do the rest. I told Ogie, umpire Si Furman would call a balk on me, sure. But Ogie says, what's the difference? They'll only move 3 runners to second and third, but I've always wanted to try this here trick. Well, old Diz was never one to tell anybody they couldn't have no fun as they went through life. So I take my position, look back at second and over to first. Take my stretch, and wham, I pretend to let go with a fast one. Ogie pops the ball into his mitt. Umpire Furman kind of blinks a little, but he calls her strike 3 and you're out. Bartell starts to kick up a fuss, but Furman interrupts him. Dick, that was right through the middle, Furman tells him. And then Bartell says, Si, I know doggone well now that you are blind. That pitch was a foot outside.
That settles it, Diz, that settles it. I'll admit that you must have been well fortified as a pitcher in those days with that fastball. Right now, how are you fortified with information for rising young America on the baseball diamond? It's time, Coach Dean, to give out with counsel for the kiddies.
I always enjoy this part of the program, Frank. It takes me back to the days when I was playing sandlot ball and dreaming of the big leagues. I'm going to talk to the boys about hitting today.
Dizzy Dean, the pitcher, talks about hitting. Well, I'll admit you were a fair sticker, Jerome.
Yes, and I'd have been a better hitter, Frank, if I hadn't been a pitcher. You know, pitchers don't get a chance to play every day. It takes daily practice to develop batting power and skill, and that's exactly the point I want to make for you young ball players right now. Just one point today. Boys today are just the same as they were when I was a youngster. They go out to the ball field, and they're so anxious to get that game started that they don't bother to take no practice at all. Did you ever see a bunch of kids go to the trouble of having batting practice before a game? They may warm up their throwing arms a little and have fielding practice, but not much of that, and very little batting practice. You ain't going to develop into hitters that way. Here's what I want you to do. If you got a game scheduled for next Saturday, I want you all to get together Friday afternoon and take 1 hour of batting practice, or 2 hours, or maybe 3 hours. Just hit till you're plumb worn out. There must be a couple of the boys with pretty good control. Let them do the pitching. They don't have to be pitchers. Control is the main thing. Just have them throw the ball over the plate with some speed. Not too much. Don't try to throw curves. The idea is practice hitting that ball. And don't try to hit home runs every time up there. Just practice meeting the ball. Practice swinging only at the strikes. In that way, you'll sharpen that batting eye and get better acquainted with that strike zone. As far as young batters' stance is concerned, don't worry about that. I've talked to some of the best hitters in the big leagues ever seen. Roger Hornsby, Joe Medrick, Bill Terry, and Stan Musial. And they'll all tell you the same thing. Be comfortable up there at the plate. You may want to sprite a little, or you may want to be back far in the batter's box. When it comes to batting, just be natural up there. In other words, the way you feel good hitting, that is the way for you to hit. But practice is the big thing. And if you boys will just take about 2 days a week at batting practice, you'll find you're getting a whole lot more fun out of your actual games, because you'll be hitting that old apple against the fences and a lot more oftener.
Well, Diz, I know you enjoy giving that advice to the youngsters. I see a twinkle in your eye.
Yes, Frank, when I was saying the kids would get a lot more fun out of their games, a story popped into my head.
And when a story pops into Dizzy Dean's head, it just must pop out. So pop away, Jerome.
We was playing an exhibition game in Florida, Frank, and it was really too early to schedule any games. We'd been in camp only a few days, and the pitchers weren't putting nothing on the ball. It was over at Avon Park, where the fences was about a mile from home plate, and if a ball happened to get past an outfielder, it just rolled and rolled. Well, I was pitching and just lobbing the ball over the plate. We was playing a farm club, Columbus or Rochester, and was having a lot of fun seeing the kids hit. Terry Moore was out in center field, and he really was having a workout, chasing him to right center and then to left center. Finally, after retrieving one of them long ones, instead of throwing the ball in, Terry just carried it. He walked all the way into second base and then to the mound. He handed me the ball and said, "Hey, Diz, please walk a couple of them guys, will you? Till I get my wind back."
Well, from where I'm sitting, Dizzy, the way it looks to me, you were trying to give Terry and the other outfielders a real workout. You know, you had a reputation of not borrowing your friends when you were looking for a chance to play a joke. I heard all about what you did to your radio engineer in New York last summer.
Did you hear that one, Frank? Well, I might as well tell it before you do. We were traveling with the Browns broadcasting their ball games play-by-play, and we had to take our engineer along with us on this trip. I guess maybe that was because they didn't have none in Boston or Philadelphia who could talk my kind of English. Anyhow, we had a fine young fellow named Stengel as our radio engineer, and we nicknamed him Casey, after my old friend. Well, we put Stengel up in fine style with a private room in the New Yorker Hotel. Casey was bragging about having a fine room, but said he wasn't used to being that high up. He was on the 32nd floor. Well, a big storm come up that night. It was blowing to beat the band, and the lightning was flashing and the thunder was rolling. Me and Johnny O'Hara was rooming together, and the storm woke us up, and we knew doggone well that Stengel was woke up, too. So Johnny gets on the telephone, changes his voice so it sounds like a room clerk, and tells Stengel that on account of the severe electrical storms and the danger involved, all guests above the 25th floor was requested to kindly get dressed and spend the balance of the night in the lobby. We didn't think Casey would fall for it, but he did. The next day he told us how he spent most of the night on a divan in the lobby.
Jerome, that's not a kindly way to treat a friend. But if you want to reverse that and really be of service to all your friends, I've got an idea.
What's that, Frank?
Well, do you know who some of your biggest fans are?
Who you thinking of, Frank?
Automotive and hardware dealers and service station men. A lot of them are able to hear this program and listen in on ball games while they're working or between jobs. They're real friends of yours, Diz, and real friends of Johnson's Carnu, too.
Well, I reckon they know most of us are about cleaning up the old family cart wagon. We like Sunday shine, but we don't like Saturday shining.
That's the ticket, Diz. And they know that Johnson's Carnu solves that problem. You see, men, Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Just rub it on, let it dry to a white powder, and wipe it off. And when you rub it on, Carnu's 5 cleaning ingredients cut right through that sticky road film that water won't touch. You know, that road film made up of oil, bugs, exhaust fumes, and all the other things that stick to the finish of your car. Then when you wipe it off, wax-fortified Carnu polishes your car, gives your car a high, bright luster that sparkles from bumper to bumper. And so if you like to tool down the road in a car that glistens in the sunlight, if you like to, how did you say that before, dears?
If you like Sunday shine, but you don't like Saturday shining.
That's it. Just ask your service station attendant or other dealer for Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. That's C-A-R-N-U, Carnu. And now, Dizzy Dean, we come to the mailbag. Frank Winchell of Jacksonville, Florida, recalls that the Cardinals of your day were about the most colorful in baseball history. He wants you to tell him a little about that color.
Frank, there was so much color on that ball club, I don't know where to start. I'm afraid I'll have to divide this up in a couple of installments. First of all, when you talk about color, I think of Pepper Martin. I guess he really was the top man in that gas house gang business, Frank. He looked like a gas houser. You could pretty him up in the clubhouse, but after 5 minutes on the field, he'd be dust from head to foot. Laugh was just one laugh after another to Pepper. He'd be sitting on the bench, and all of a sudden, he'd start laughing. And then he'd tell us what he'd done. One of his tricks was to carry sneeze powder around with him. One night in New York, he saw a nice old couple sitting together in the lobby, minding their own business. The old gentleman was reading the paper. So Pepper goes up on the mezzanine. That's the balcony above the lobby floor, Frank.
Yes, I saw one once, Jerome.
Well, anyhow, Pepper drops some sneeze powder so it lands on the old gentleman's paper. In a few minutes, the man is letting out one sneeze after another. It was red-hot July weather in New York, but the man's wife turned to him and said, "I told you, Roscoe, that you should have put on a heavier suit than that." And that made the evening perfect for Pepper Martin. Another time we was on our way to Brooklyn in the subway. Pepper edges toward the front of the car, and as he opens the door, letting in a big windy draft, he flips some sneeze powder up in the air. Before you know it, the whole car is sneezing. Boy, that Pepper would drive you crazy.
He sure would. Diz, wasn't a bag of water another of the Pepper Martin tricks?
It sure was, Frank. One evening in Boston, we was all standing outside the hotel on the sidewalk, and Pepper tries to douse us with a big laundry bag full of water. Just as he threw it, Coach Buzzy Wares and manager Frankie Frisch walked out of the hotel, and the bag of water exploded on the sidewalk right between them. Brother Frank and Buzzy could have dried off by jumping into the Charles River.
What'd Frisch do about that?
He went straight up to Martin's room and told Pepper that would cost him $50. But Pepper pleaded with Frank that it was a mistake, that he wasn't trying to hit his dandy little manager. "I'll tell you what I'll do, Mr. Frisch," said Martin, real polite-like. "To show you the high respect I have for you as a gentleman and as a manager, I will win tomorrow's game for you. And I know then that you won't find poor little Johnny." And doggone if that wasn't just what Pepper done. We got only about 3 hits off of Danny McFadden, but one was a home run by Pepper, and we win 1-0.
And did that $50 fine stick, Dizzy?
What do you think, Frank?
Well, I think it's time for you to cast your eye on the big league picture. What do you see today?
Okay, Frank, and I think I've got a good fast one right through the middle of the plate. Let's pass the 2-pennant races this time. They're still red hot, and it's anybody's race. We got time for that next week. Baseball lost a great figure this week, Frank. I'm not going to add anything to what already has been said about Babe Ruth and what he meant to baseball. What I want to talk about is what he will always mean to baseball. Frank, I hear there's a Babe Ruth Foundation to do things to help unprivileged kids. Well, I got a suggestion, and I'm talking now to the fathers and big brothers of the country, to the Board of Aldermen and the city councils all over America. Let's form a Babe Ruth Memorial Committee in every city and town and village. And here's the idea. Build an extra baseball diamond in every city and town and call it Babe Ruth Memorial Field. That field will be for the kids to use. If a city has 20 diamonds, 1 more will help. Call it Babe Ruth Field. And if a town ain't got any baseball field at all for the kids, build one and call it Babe Ruth Field. It'll be a big job, but it can be done. Let's all get together. Somebody in every town appoint himself chairman of a Babe Ruth Memorial Committee, call a meeting, and let's get going.
That's a good idea, Diz, and let's get going now. Folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at this same time next week to listen to Dizzy Dean. He's brought to you by Johnson's Carnu, a wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application. Rub it on, and Carnu cleans your car, penetrates road film that water won't touch, dissolves road film right before your eyes. Wipe it off, and your car is polished. Carnew makes it look as bright as day and as smooth as silk. Get some Johnson's Carnew today and get a high polish without hard work. Because remember, to give your car that Sunday shine, rub it on and wipe it off is all you do with Carnew.
And this is Old Diz. Hope all you folks on the stands this time next Saturday. I'll be pitching them across again for Johnson's Carnew.
This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's wax-fortified auto polish, Carnew. Well, here he is again, folks. Dizzy Dean, brought to you by the makers of Johnson's Wax for Carnew, the wax-fortified auto polish that cleans and polishes your car in one easy application.
Howdy, folks. Frank, did I tell you the football story I run into at the All-Star game?
No, but I know you're going to tell it. Folks, this is Frank Eshin telling you that on this particular Saturday afternoon, Dizzy Dean, coach, reporter, baseball analyst, Swami, and raconteur, is starting his storytelling department early. But, Diz, I didn't know you were football-minded.
I'm interested in all sports and all forms of athletics, Frank. But I was telling you the one I run into at the All-Star game. And whatever you're got arranged for today, this won't slow you up none. But I got a chuckle out of it. I was going home from the All-Star game, and we was going to stop at a little restaurant on the north side of Chicago for a good night's snack. And right next to the restaurant was one of them little delicatessen shops. As we got out of the cab, a couple of boys who had been to the football game and who also looked like they'd been on a merry-go-round stopped at the delicatessen window. Well, on the window was some advertising signs chalked on the glass. One of them said, salami 82, hamburger 80. And one of the guys who looked like he was on the merry-go-round took his companion by the arm and pointed to the sign on the delicatessen window. Partner, he said, salami 82, hamburger 80. That was a close, scoring game, too, wasn't it?
I had no idea that you were interested in football. Did you play the game, Jerome?
Yes, I gave it a try, Frank, but I didn't play it much. In the first place, I was saving my arm for baseball. In the second place, my college coach thought I was a little too fresh.
A fresh Dizzy Dean, I can't imagine that. Tell me the details of that adventure, Jerome.
Well, I never really made the varsity, Frank. In fact, I wasn't even percolated to college. But there was a little sort of material that year. I hung around the football practice field a couple of innings, and the coach said to me, young feller, you're good and tall, and you look like you can run. How about putting on a uniform and helping our alma mater? Well, I didn't know Alma, but I figured that didn't matter. And I didn't have nothing to do, so I went in and put on a football suit on me. I was put with the scrubs, of course, and I must have looked like I had something because the coach gave me a lot of attention. Well, we were scrimmaging against the varsity, and the first time we was given the ball way down on our own goal line. The coach in charge of the scrub says to me, big long boy, you cut over this way on this play. This here quarterback will hand you the ball. You shoot off right tackle and then follow your interference. Well, Frank, I didn't know where right tackle was on that field. But I cut in the way he told me to do, and sure enough, a guy hands me the ball. I saw all of them football players in front of me, so I took off for the side of the field. And I outrun everybody and got plumb down to the varsity goal line without ne'er a hand being laid on me.
Well, that should have pleased the coach no end, Jerome, for you to show that much talent.
That's what I thought, Frank, but apparently I did everything wrong. The coach called me aside and he says, long boy, you didn't make no feint at all when you took that hand off. And the line opened up like a wagon gate off a tackle, and you ignored that hold completely. And when you went around in, you lost your interference. You didn't have nobody to help you the way you run it. And you carried the ball too high, and you didn't reverse your field once. I was kind of disgusted by that time, Frank. So I says, Coach, will you tell me one thing? And the coach says, certainly, I will be happy to answer any question. So I says, okay, Coach, would you mind telling me how was that run of mine for distance?
No wonder the coach thought you were fresh, Diz. And while you're still fresh this afternoon, how about putting on your coach's robes and giving out with some advice for young Americans who'd like to become better baseball players more quickly? Give out, Coach Dean.
Yes, sir, Frank, and I think I've got something today that will really help the young baseball players. It's about hitting again, and I guess that's the part of baseball we all like best, whether we're kids on the sandlots or a 10-year man in the big leagues. I recommend last week that the boys' teams hold batting practice as often as possible. That's the only way you can improve your hitting, by practice. And this here advice is for those boys who are learning that You just can't hit that ball over the fence every time. In other words, I'm talking to the boys who get more kick out of a hit going safe than they get out of a long fly that some outfielder catches near the fence. In the first place, that's its object of batting, to hit the ball, to get a base hit and drive in some runs, all right? There's no better advice I can give you than to tell you to try to learn to hit to all fields. It'll be difficult at first, but you can learn to do it. The best way at first is to hit the ball where it happens to be pitched. If it's inside, pull it. That is, if you're a right-hand hitter, you pull a ball to left field. Then if the ball is pitched outside to you, don't try to pull it. Just meet that ball and you're likely to hit it to right. Your swing at that outside pitch is just a little later than when you're trying to pull.
Sounds like good advice, Diz. And by the way, are there many hitters who can hit to all fields?
Some of the greatest I ever seen learned to hit that way, Frank. Remember how Frankie Frisch used to bat? Now, there was a smart hitter. He'd walk up to the plate, rub the dust off his shoes on the back of his stockings, and look over the infield and outfield to see where everybody was playing him. They used to play Frisch for a right field hitter when he batted left-handed, but they found out many a time that was wrong. Frank was one of the best I ever seen at hitting him where there wasn't no outfielders. That's the way he done it in that 7th game of the 1934 World Series. And, boys, he just about broke up that ball game early as it was. And, Frank, maybe you've seen George Sisler when he was leading the American League, too.
Yes, Diz, I saw Sisler at his peak, and you're right. He was that kind of a hitter, too. And I also remember another great place hitter, one Billy Herman. How do you rate him, Professor Dean?
Right at the top, Frank. I guess he was the greatest hit-and-run man I ever played against. And that's what I want the young ball players on the sandlots to try to do. Hit to all fields like George Sisler did, and Frankie Frisch and Billy Herman. It's a matter of practice. Get some older ball player in your neighborhood to explain about shifting the feet. You have to use a different stance to push a ball to the opposite field, but you can do it if you keep on trying. And here's the final part of the advice. Don't give up if you are considered one of the weaker hitters on your particular sandlot. If you haven't the power, you can make up for it by being a smart hitter. Get your dad or your uncle to tell you about Rabbit Miranville. The Rabbit didn't have no power at the plate, but he was tricky, and you can find that kind of a player in the National League today. Little Eddie Stanky of the Boston Braves didn't break down no fences, but he'll wear you out up there at the plate. Boys, be a smart hitter, whether you got power or not. Learn to hit the ball to all fields.
Yes, it pays to be smart, Dizzy, whether you play baseball or just do ordinary things. Like, for instance, driving an automobile.
Get ready for a trip to your nearest dealer or service station, folks. It's time for Frank to pitch a shiner.
A shiner? What do you mean, Diz?
I mean start pitching car new. It's a real shiner if I ever seen one.
A Sunday shiner, you might say, Diz.
It sure makes a car look pretty.
And it makes cleaning your car a whole lot easier, too. You see, men, Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu cleans and polishes your car in one easy operation. Just rub it on, let it dry to a white powder, and wipe it off. When you rub Carnu on your automobile, its 5 cleaning ingredients go to work. Cut right through that sticky, oily road film that all cars collect and that water won't touch. When you wipe Carnu off, it polishes your car, makes it bright as a bandbox, and that's because Carnu is wax-fortified. There it is, men. That's all there is to it with Carnu. Just rub it on, wipe it off, and you've got a clean, bright, sweet-looking car. So today, ask your dealer or nearest service station for Carnu. That's C-A-R-N-U, Johnson's wax-fortified Carnu. And tomorrow, drive in the Sunday sun in a car with a Sunday shine. Now, Diz, we come to the mailbag department. Prepare to answer a question from G.J. Flournoy of Mobile, Alabama, who wants you to regale him with some information about a famous musical organization.
It ain't Fred Waring he's talking about, is it, Frank?
No, Jerome, a more plebeian group of devotees to point and counterpoint. Mr. Flournoy wants you to tell him about Pepper Martin's Mississippi Mudcats.
Oh, them guys?
Yes, Mr. Flournoy wants to know who they were, whence they came, and whatever happened to them.
Well, Frank, I guess I can start best by saying them Mudcats of Pepper Martin's could make the most funny sounds and get the most fun out of it of anybody I ever knew in the world. Pepper was the granddaddy of the Mudcats. I don't know where he got the urge to play music. I guess he must have picked up some hillbillies in his station wagon sometime, and they entertained him. Anyhow, he become just plain hillbilly crazy, Frank. There was days we couldn't get into the clubhouse in St. Louis because Martin would have hillbillies draped all over the benches and the trunks. Anyhow, Pepper got himself a guitar and found out which hand to use here and there. I don't know whether you'd call it music, but it sure gave Pepper a big thrill. So he organized a little band on the ball club. Lon Warnicki, who really could play a guitar, furnished most of the real music. Then Bob Wallen, left-hand pitcher, played the jug.
The jug, Jizzy? I thought that'd be frowned on.
Oh, this was a harmless little empty jug, Frank, with the jug empty and no cork in it. Bob would blow into the doggone thing, and he could make several kinds of noises. Then there was Bill McGee with his fiddle, and Max Lanier, who played a harmonica.
And I sort of remember a gay troubadour named Stanley Bordigaray, Diz. Wasn't he a member in good standing of those marvelous Mudcats?
Yes, he was, Frank. And I shouldn't forget, Frankie. When he showed up at camp, he had a cute little mustache, and as soon as Pepper Martin seen him, he knew that here was a man after his own heart. So he asked Frankie if he had any talent along musical lines. Frankie said, yes, I am quite a violin player. So Martin told him to report for a tryout. Well, Frankie borrowed a violin from the barber in the second chair in the shop across from the Detroit Hotel in St. Petersburg, where we were stopping. But Frankie didn't last long in the fiddle section.
Why, what was the trouble, Jerome? No conservatory background?
It wasn't that, Frank, but Frankie played too fancy. He stuck that thing under his chin and started out in one of them fancy opera numbers of Ogrodowski or Hans Wagner, and Martin stopped him real quick. Pepper says, that's enough, Stanley. You no doubt play the violin very well, but take the violin back to the barber. We'll keep on getting by with a fiddle.
But Frenchie made the team anyhow, didn't he?
Yes, he played the washboard. That was Pepper's idea. He figured Frankie was a natural-born mudcat, so he made him a washboard player. It was a fancy washboard, too, with a red and green light, a whistle, and all them fancy noises makers Peppers could find at the dime store.
And what became of the Mudcats, Diz?
Branch Rickey broke 'em up, Frank. Uncle Branch noticed that whenever the Cardinals arrived in town, there was more in the paper about Mudcats than there was about baseball. Baseball writers was quoting Pepper Martin about Wabash Cannonball, coming around the mountain, and Willie, my toes are cold, and wasn't paying no attention to the pennant race. So Rickey issued orders. The jug and the washboard was thrown away, no more public appearance, or even rehearsals for the Mudcats.
Ah, too bad, Jerome. A great loss to music, and I dare say they often took the ball club's mind off its troubles.
Yes, and you can stand a little entertainment. You have plenty to worry about in baseball, especially the managers.
That sounds like a story.
No, this really happened, Frank. We was on a losing streak in the East, but Frankie Frisch had invited us out to his house in New Rochelle for dinner. And even when we lost another game, he stuck by the invitation. But Frank wasn't in no mood to entertain nobody. He was grumpy on the way out, and he didn't shake it off even when he got to the dinner table. Finally, his wife, who had been trying to cheer him up, talking about everything except baseball, breaks in and says, "Now, Frank, why don't you quit worrying over that ball game? It's gone. There's nothing you can do to get it back. After all, tomorrow's another day, and, darling, you still have me." "Yes, Mrs. Frisch," says Frank, "but along about the 8th inning this afternoon, I'd have traded you for a base hit."
Poor Frank, he just wouldn't be cheered up, huh?
No, he wasn't going to be cheered up by nobody. Later that same evening, a friend of his named Bernie O'Shea calls up all excited. Mr. O'Shea had seen some kid pitch a no-hit game that afternoon, and he was telling Frank all about it. But Frank wasn't interested. He kept saying, "Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah?" Finally, Bernie O'Shea tells Frank, "Say, do you know that kid was so good this afternoon that there was only one loud foul made off of him? Mr. Frisch, don't you want me to bring that young pitcher around for a tryout?" "No, thanks, Bernie," says Frisch, "but I'll tell you what you can do for me." "What's that?" O'Shea wants to know. "Just this. The way my club's been hitting, just get me the name of that kid that made that loud foul."
And speaking of hitting and pitching, Jerome, it's time to give us the slant of Dizzy Dean, the reporter on the baseball picture.
Let's talk about the most valuable players, Frank. I think the National League is a runaway for Stan Musial. He's leading in almost everything except home runs. Every time you look up, Stan is winning a ball game. I can't see anybody close to Stan right now.
How about the American League?
There's a hot race in that league, Frank. Vern Stevens is having a tremendous year with the Red Sox. He's playing a great game.
And more next time, Diz. And folks, we hope you'll be right back with us at the same time next week to Len polishes your car in one easy application. This is Frank Eshin saying goodbye until next Saturday for the makers of Johnson's Wax Fortified Auto Polish Car New.